We got a new one.
Ladies, gentlemen, welcome. Hope everybody's doing well this evening. A couple of things I would like to say before we get started. First off, our hearts and prayers should go out to those people that were involved in 9/11. Today is the 17th year anniversary. When you look at that and look at what transpired, we are also blessed. We should also keep in our thoughts and prayers the coastal area, what they're going to go through the next 3 or 4 days, and of course our area. And so let's keep that in mind as well. And thirdly, as you all are aware, that we did have an incident on Valley Boulevard today where United Community Bank was held up. And I think our police department did a very good job. They called in sheriffs and Boone Police to try to track this person down. And the last I was told, the investigation is ongoing with some positive points. So that being said, do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
No, I'll wait for discussion.
Okay. Second?
Second.
And discussion?
I'd like to take off, under new business F, consideration of mural at Blowing Rock Inn. Per the updated, information that we got from, when you guys decided to update the, rules about public art, BRAC is supposed to bring that to us, so we're getting a little bit ahead of it. This should be reviewed.
BRAC did send us via email that they approved it.
Okay, I didn't see that it was approved by BRAC
Yes, ma'am. Mhm.
in the minutes. I was looking through the minutes for that.
When did we get that email? I haven't gotten it.
I haven't got it.
3 days ago.
I didn't get it.
I didn't get
No.
Was it in the,
Hillary, do you remember that coming out? Okay. Jennifer, did BRAC approve the mural?
Yes, sir. And I think the email that, now that I'm thinking about it, may have been the email that was sent to you and Ed. I think we were having that discussion, and I don't know if everyone was in that email conversation.
Okay.
They
You were
when
asking
did they
Ed if
approve?
BRAC had approved it, and I think I responded with yes, it had, and I don't know if all of council was on that email list.
Okay.
Did they approve it in the normal course of business, or was it a rush up?
This has been in conversation through a BRAC meeting. We've actually had 2 meetings kind of regarding this mural, and then things kind of changed, and we weren't able to have our regular meeting last week, so we had to, basically, we sent it out through email and asked if, they were okay with all this, so it could be on the agenda for this month.
so someone from BRAC is gonna be here to present it to us tonight. That's,
I can present it if that's what you would like.
isn't that the way it should be done?
Yes, and typically it would be Melissa who would do it because she's the BRAC president, but she cannot do it because it's hers.
Property.
So, yes.
So, do you have the drawings and you can present that to us on behalf of BRAC?
Yes, I can get all that together.
5 minutes.
Yeah, I've got it.
No, typically, it would be that that particular piece of paper would be part of our packet, along with the request, so that we could digest it before this meeting, typically. That's
I
usually the
think,
way things.
ladies and gentlemen, since all were not informed through due diligence and protocol, I think it's probably best to accept the motion and postpone this till the next council meeting, unless you all think different. I thought everybody was notified. I got the notification, and I didn't look at who it was copied to. But it being said that BRAC did, in my email, approve the mural.
Charlie, I can't quote you chapter or verse, but I thought it indicated in the packet, in your all's packet, that BRAC had approved it. I read it.
We got confusion here.
Well,
Got confusion.
No, there was no mention of that in the packet.
I don't
That any
know.
committee or any department had approved anything,
so,
at least
do you want to go
the
ahead with
copy
your
that I
motion?
read.
Yeah, that was my motion. I mean, if someone was here, that's how I read it. I read the, update, what was different about the, public art, and it was that it goes before BRAC, and BRAC would approve it, and then we would have someone from BRAC to present it to us. And it looked to me in our agenda that we were getting ahead of BRAC, and I wanted to be sure that BRAC was gonna present it, and then we vote on it. So that's,
I second
It's a
your
procedure.
motion.
In our packet, it says the art mural is being reviewed by BRAC with a recommendation to be forwarded to town council, of which it was forwarded to myself, and I apologize, I did not know it was not forwarded to everybody else.
so you guys wanna vote on taking it off the agenda, or?
Well, we have to vote.
Yes, sir.
We have to vote for yours first.
Kevin wants to say something. Yes, Kevin?
I put this sheet together, this packet, and it was knowing that BRAC could not meet until next week, or the end of this Thursday, I believe it is. And so it's being reviewed by BRAC, and as I was writing it, I knew that they were reviewing it by email. They'd already seen the artwork twice, I believe, and so a recommendation coming from them prior to your decision tonight. Several of them are here. Jennifer's telling you that they recommended approval of it. And so, not trying to get anything ahead, but knowing they didn't have a normal course of action, then your next meeting is October, so they would not be able to start. If there was an opportunity to do the mural, they couldn't start it this year. So that's what we're trying to get it in front of you.
Well, I feel rushed.
I just think we need to follow protocol, and I did not know anything about it, so I seconded Virginia's to take it off of the agenda.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. This will be taken up at a later
I'll bring
meeting.
it back for you. According to this policy, it says private property does not have to come before council. BRAC can approve it and be done with it.
Yeah, there's some out of order.
Ray, I appreciate that, and I think that that's something that we can discuss. Please get with Kevin and Ed, and then I'm sure Kevin and Ed will copy all of us on what is discussed. I did read through the BRAC, and it's what you all approved some time back was pretty straightforward. So I do question whether it has to come in front of council either. But, you know, I was not involved at the time.
Would it be a problem with having Alan look at that? Because I also read it that way, that I don't think it needs to come in front of us. So would you also have Alan look at that?
We got to vote approved. We voted to delay it, right?
Yeah, it's off the agenda.
I think
And I
that
think that question should go to that gentleman right over there.
it has now been removed from the agenda. We will leave it up to Alan and Ed to make the decision on whether this is following protocol as far as the ordinance is written. Okay? All right? All right, now, still looking at adoption of the agenda. Do we want to make any other changes while we're making changes? Okay. We have a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay. Agenda's approved. Now, we have a special presentation from Vance Patterson.
Council, Mayor and Council, the speaker that we thought we would be engaging with tonight is Vance Patterson. You're actually going to see him in a video. Vance was deterred and unable to come, but he has sent his very capable assistants, Ron Lewis and David Streeter. Ron is going to actually do a presentation for us, and David is here to back up that and keep him truthful. So Ron and David both live in Burke County in Morganton. The Foundation Ford is a 501c3, and they are relocating to a new office in Valdez very soon. And you're going to meet some of these principals in this video, after which Ron will have a PowerPoint presentation for us. And then I have moved any discussion or any decisions that would rendered, if any, to new business. So first of all, a video presentation, and then Ron will present the project to us. Somebody at the back there, if you'll hit those two light switches. And I'm going to go here to the video.
Did you bring the popcorn?
It's coming a little bit later.
Okay. That's what I know.
Unfortunately, a lot of people don't get to go to Washington, D.C. and see our founding documents.
So many people that I talk to don't know what the Charters of Freedom are. When we explain, they say, oh yeah, I've heard about those. It's very important that students not only know about the history, but why they should have pride in these documents.
Back in 2011, my wife and I were up in Washington, D.C. visiting with some congressmen and some of the organizations up there. We had some free time, so we decided to go over to the National Archives. You walk through these big bronze gates into this rotunda, and there are the founding documents over on the other side of the room. These are known as your Charters of Freedom. The first time I saw the Declaration of Independence, something our founding fathers had actually penned, and saw their signatures, Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin, John Adams, Rutledge, and the others, I just got goosebumps. I remember the thought came to me, what if I could duplicate the experience I had up in Washington? The first time we saw the Charters of Freedom, what if I could bring that experience back to the citizens of Burke County? Then, on July 2nd, 2014, we dedicated the first Charters of Freedom monument outside of Washington, D.C.
From an educational standpoint, for our children to actually see it within their home counties, be able to touch it, feel it, and view it, it's a huge deal for veterans as well as for our children.
Imagine, if you will, 3rd and 4th grade school teachers bringing their classes here for annual field trips to learn a little about the documents, a little about our government, our founding fathers, and also about state and local history while they're here.
I think with the educational system, teachers and educators are sometimes limited by the materials and just time. So to be able to provide teachers the educational materials that they can use to kind of focus their visits to these sites, that's exciting to me.
When they talk of their Charters of Freedom and their hometown, remembering that their 4th grade school teacher took them down and taught them about the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and the Declaration of Independence. We're in the beginning of what can be a massive re-education of our founding principles.
Our goal as a foundation is to set monuments in as many communities as possible over the next 9 years, to provide access to our founding documents in the communities, so the children and people of these communities don't have to go all the way to Washington, D.C. to to experience these documents in a proper setting. But they will no longer talk about the Constitution and Bill of Rights in Washington. They'll be talking about their Constitution and their Bill of Rights, the ones they grew up with, right in their home community.
You will put the lights back on. There you go, thank you. Ron comes to us as an experienced county manager, and most recently, I believe he was in Burke County. You weren't in Burke County when this project was done, I don't think, as a manager, were you?
Yes.
Oh, you were? You-
I had retired.
Okay, retired, okay. So, and another plug is, this gentleman is a United States Marine officer, and
Thank you very
what they
much.
have to share is great, so.
We thank you very much for the opportunity to visit with you tonight. As a county manager and then as a consultant and disaster consultant, and I've traveled all 100 counties. And if there's a prettier place in North Carolina than Blowing Rock, I haven't seen it. I want you to know that we realize how beautiful your community is. We would like to be a part of that. I'm not here to sell you anything. We want to gift the Charters of Freedom to you. And the money is in hand. We have the resources and the money is available to build in Blowing Rock the Charters of Freedom. Your responsibility would be to select the location. And as I walk around your beautiful town, there's more locations than Carter has liver pills. You have a beautiful community, and we would like to be a part of that. My name is Ron Lewis. I'm the spokesperson when Vance Patterson can't get to a meeting. Vance would like to be here himself, but he simply can't be everywhere. When he can't, I fill in for him. If we'll have the next slide, please. Okay. Foundation Forward is a nonprofit 501c3 corporation. We get our funds from public money. We don't from private money. We do not spend public money whatsoever. Now, it's kind of awkward for me as a 30-year county manager. I've sat down with Vance on numerous occasions and said, Vance, let me spend their money. And he says, no, Ron, we're not going to put any tax dollars into the Charters of Freedom. And to this point, we haven't done that. We're all over western North Carolina. We have one in the east of North Carolina in Bertie County. We just built in Utah. We're under construction now in South Dakota. We're under construction in Nebraska. We have settings in Illinois, Indiana, and Kentucky. And we're working with people literally in all 50 states to locate the Charters of Freedom. But this, again, is private money. It's all about educating our school kids and future leaders what a price was paid for the founding of this great country with the Charters of Freedom. Next slide. That tells you a little bit about us and how we got started. You have a heavy agenda, and I'm going to move quickly through these slides so I'll not delay your business tonight. When I'm in a group this size, and I ask for a show of hands of people that have actually been to the National Archives building, we'll have, wow, I'm going to eat my words tonight. Generally, I have less than 10% that acknowledge that they have been to the National Archives building. However, if I ask them the question, did you see the movie National Treasure? Most hands go up. We don't have any hands there. Okay. In the movie The National Treasure, they stole the Declaration of Independence from the National Archives building. You've got to see a lot of the archives building in the movie. Next. As you go through these big bronze doors and opens up into this beautiful rotunda, you see the Declaration of Independence on the left, the 4 pages of the Constitution in the middle, and the Bill of Rights, the original proposed Bill of Rights on the right. Next slide. The documents, I don't say they're in bad shape because they mean the world to me as a patriot, but they have deteriorated to the point that you can hardly read them. This is the Declaration of Independence. Next slide is the Constitution, the first page of the Constitution. Next slide is the Bill of Rights. Now, of all the documents, the Bill of Rights, interestingly, is probably in the worst condition. And it's the junior in terms of time of the other documents. Next slide. Among our founding fathers, there were 2 staunch educators that believed that education was the future of this great country, that being Thomas Jefferson, the 3rd President of the United States, and Benjamin Franklin. Benjamin Franklin was the sage of the founding fathers. What does that mean? That means that many of the founding fathers were very young men. They were in their 20s and early 30s. When they got stumped and didn't know the answer to a question, they would ask old Ben, and Benjamin always had the answer. He was absolutely brilliant beyond his years. Next slide. These gentlemen thought that education should be in 3 forms. They believe there should be a primary education, a secondary level, and a 3rd level. And that, if you look at that carefully, that's basically our education system still today, after all these years. Next slide. That's my courthouse. That's the Burke County Courthouse. National Day of Prayer years ago, Vance and Mary Jo Patterson were standing under that shade tree, and they had the inspiration to do this project. And that's, as a retired county manager, when Vance asked me to help him, that was the answer to prayers. I wanted to contribute to the community, and I wanted to do something productively, and not have to please 5 distinct personalities all the time. But anyway, we have fun every day of our lives when we get to present the Charters of Freedom. Next slide. Foundation Forward Education nonprofit organization. We've already talked about that. Next. The scope of our project is to design and build replicas of the Charters of Freedom as in the National Archives building in Washington. The display should be centrally located and where there's a lot of foot traffic. There is no more foot traffic on a summer day than in Blowing Rock, North Carolina. I know firsthand because that's, again, it's one of my favorite places. But we also want the ability for school buses to be able to park safely and unload their children because we want education to continue to be #1 in that endeavor. Next slide. Again, we have the Declaration of Independence on the left, the 4 pages of the Constitution in the middle, and the Bill of Rights on the right. Next. When we started doing this, we didn't know a lot about what we were doing. We have learned so much. David and I are currently, started counting them up today. He and I are working almost 40 different projects across this country right now. And we have a number under construction. But we go down 3.5 feet and we pour 19 tons of concrete. Now, we have a gentleman with us on our staff that was a sergeant major in the Army, and he happened to be a tanker. And he said, Ron, I could run a tank into this foundation and it's not going to budge. But Vance wants these to be permanent. The engineer that designed these settings has told us that they would last between 300 and 500 years. Now, I don't know how we're going to test that, but that's what he told us as he designed the Charters of Freedom. Next. That's the core. That's the surface on which the exterior of the monument, I did it again. They're not monuments. There's settings. Now, a monument is in memorial of a person, place, or an event. The reason we have changed to call them settings is these are living documents. They exist today, and largely our country conforms to these every day that this government is in operation. For the most part, that is. I'm not going to show my political affiliation here. Next slide. That's the center display. Next. Okay. We put document trays on top of the foundation after it's built. Next. The bronze plates are engraved bronze. They weigh 60 pounds, about 60 pounds apiece. And the glass is bullet glass. That has evolved too as we have grown and learned what we're doing. That's the same glass that's in skyscrapers that we're building across the country today. It's the best glass that we can find for this purpose. Next slide. That's what it looks like when it's finished. The Declaration of Independence is on the left. The 4 pages of the Constitution is in the middle, and the Bill of Rights is on the right. Next slide. We commissioned some artists to design a logo for us that would depict what we do every day of our lives. And as we tell people across this great country about the Charters of Freedom, the eagle stands for the Constitution, bold, defiant, and omnipowerful. The stars across the middle are in the top are the pages or the articles of the Constitution, and the stars at the bottom represent the Bill of Rights. Next. We put a time capsule in the back, and we'll want some letters from citizens. We'd like letters from, of course, from City Council, perhaps a letter from the school superintendent, the sheriff, as chief of police, to let people know when the time capsule is opened what life was like in Blowing Rock, North Carolina in 2018 when these were constructed. Next. The Charters of Freedom time capsule will be opened for the first time on September the 17th, 2087, which is the 300th anniversary of the adoption of the United States Constitution. Next. There's a story here, and I'm going to tell it. I know I'm going over my time, Mr. Mayor, for that. I apologize. You probably met in your meetings the former mayor of City of Morganton. Had been there for 30 years. I thought I would never forget his name, but now I have. I've got the Al Gore syndrome. I have forgotten who the mayor. Anyway.
Cohen.
Who?
Cohen.
Cohen. Mel. Thank you. It was Mel Cohen. Vance Patterson called me one day and says, "Ron, will you make an appointment with Mel Cohen?" And I said, "You want me to make an appointment with Mel Cohen?" He said, "Yes." I said, "Well, you know, Mel and I don't agree on everything. I'm a county manager. He was the mayor." He says, "Well, I think you can do it. Set up a meeting with Mel Cohen." So I did. And Vance pitched to Mel Cohen what he wanted to do. Now, next slide. You didn't even see those flagpoles, did you? One of Mel's first years, he had planted that Christmas tree, which hid those flagpoles. And as Mel Cohen asked Vance Patterson, "Well, Mr. Patterson, where do you propose to put the Charters of Freedom?" Vance proceeded to tell him, "We want to put it where the tree is now, that old dead dying tree." and the room went, because that was the mayor's tree. But, you know, Mr. Mayor Cohen said, "Well, I guess that tree's got to go." And the tree was removed, and the Charters of Freedom were put there. And Mel was very proud of that. And they have a new Christmas tree that they light now. It's much prettier than that one. Next. This is in Burnsville, North Carolina. Next. This is in Asheville. That was number 2. Next. This is in Indiana. That is, that's the first limestone that we built with Indiana limestone. Next. That's a dedication in Burnsville. Next. That's a dedication in Morganton. Next. This dedication was pouring down rain, and we had 200 people in the rain in Jacksonville, Illinois, to see the dedicating of the Charters of Freedom in their beautiful community. Next. That's what it's all about, folks. This teacher taking these young students and teaching them about the Charters of Freedom and what our founding fathers did to create this great country. Next. Again, that's a good example of what it's all about. All school kids don't get to go to the National Archives building, and we want to build as many Charters of Freedom across the country in the next 10 years as we can build. Next. There's old Benjamin Franklin. I have been known to dress up like Ben. I'm trying to lose my profile, but you know, at my age, that's a hard thing to do. My profile doesn't want to change so much, but I show you this slide for one specific purpose. Some of the biggest users of the Charters of Freedom across western North Carolina and other parts of the country are the homeschoolers. The homeschoolers really use and enjoy the Charters of Freedom. Next. There's another view of one. Next. Okay. I'm about to close. There are 3,143 counties, boroughs, and what's the third one, David? Parishes, thank you, across the country. Our goal over the next 10 years is to build as many of those as we can build. And then we will have accomplished our goal. Next. It's all about education, access, and community. And next. We're an education foundation. Next. That concludes my presentation. Again, I'm not here to sell you anything, Mr. Mayor and Council. We would like to gift to the town of Blowing Rock the Charters of Freedom of our great country. So I will be around to answer any questions that you might have. And may I entertain them now, Mr. Mayor? Questions? Or should we wait till the time?
I think we'll wait till it comes up on the.
Thank you very much.
On the agenda. Thank you. All right, moving forward. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from August 14th, regular town council meeting?
Motion to approve.
Second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Do I have a motion to approve the August 14th closed session meeting?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Those. Approval of minutes. Okay. Speakers from the floor. Now keep in mind, we request that nothing be discussed at this point of anything on the current agenda. I think we have one individual who would like to speak. Bill Carter. Bill, would you step up, please? And for the record, just state your address.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, distinguished members of council. My name is Bill Carter. I live on Terry Acre Circle in the Green Park Historic District of our village. I will be brief. I'd like to go on record this evening representing the Blowing Rock Civic Association to ask that you give serious thought and consideration sooner rather than later to consulting a professional land planning firm or even the North Carolina School of Government to give experienced and seasoned advice on how best our newly constructed Valley Boulevard should be developed. We only have one shot at being able to affect how this important corridor will be developed. We, as I'm sure you, want that growth to be done in a fashion that will best match the attractive appearance and desirability of our village, affording us its development that will enhance the beauty of this town of Blowing Rock we all call home. Thank you for your attention to this matter.
Thank you, Bill. I think that's, we'll take that under advisement, and I think that's a concern of everybody's. So thank you so much. All right, moving forward.
I think the other thing is the planning board is looking at this, a subcommittee that met today, that is looking at 321 and getting some ideas and what they need to do. So it might be that a land planning firm or even using the School of Government to help them get educated about it might not be a bad idea.
That's something that we can address, because the School of Government will help. Of course, there are fees involved and so on. So, but I think that's definitely something we should look into. All right, moving forward, we got the consent agenda. All right. The budget amendment ordinance and the resolution to honor the Blowing Rock's fallen firefighters. Do we have a motion to approve?
Move.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Consent agenda passes. All right, moving forward, we have the public hearing on consideration of a sign ordinance. Kevin?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'd like to present this sign ordinance for your review and consideration before we open the public hearing. Just give you some background on this project. Earlier this year, staff hired Benchmark Planning Consultants to rewrite our sign ordinance and make it compliant with the Reed versus Town of Gilbert Supreme Court decision from 2015. Vaughn Hanson is here tonight. He's with Benchmark. You might remember Vaughn helped us with our comprehensive plan update in 2014. Vaughn, a few years ago, completed a complete revision of the City of Concord sign ordinance while the Reed case was being decided. He then rewrote the ordinance, and it was adopted as one of the first in North Carolina to be consistent with the Reed decision. That still sound? That's accurate. Okay. Vaughn prepared multiple drafts of the Blowing Rock sign ordinance, which were reviewed by the zoning subcommittee of the planning board. Vaughn also prepared an assessment of our entire sign ordinance, where we had some problems being consistent with that Supreme Court ruling. And with that, coupled with his review, we met with the zoning subcommittee over the past several months. We had several reviews and modifications, and a draft ordinance was presented to the full planning board at the August 23rd meeting. With a few additional minor modifications to the draft ordinance, the planning board recommended approval to forward to the public hearing for your consideration tonight. Most of the sign ordinance structure remains in place with some rearrangement for clarity. Some things that probably should have been moved around years ago, but they weren't, but so we took the opportunity to do that. Some of the major changes to the draft sign ordinance include these, and I'll just go down a list of 7. Regulations of signs without respect to content, because that Reed decision required that enforcement to be content neutral. Well, content is the message. So really, you have to read what does the sign say to be able to know whether or not it's permitted or not.
Do you have, can you put those up there? Are they up there?
I don't think I have that.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. I have, it's just in your packet, but I'll be glad to
I
share
was
it.
just thinking for the public.
Sure. Number 2, allowing one temporary sign for each property per street frontage. These are limited to 4 square feet in all districts except general business, where they're allowed up to 16 square feet. Number 3, temporary signs would not be regulated by content, but rather whether they're designed and installed in a manner that makes them easily removable. Number 4, allowing up to 5 temporary signs per street frontage during the election period by suspending the regulations. Number 5, Off-premise signs are allowed since the ordinance must remain content neutral. However, the property must have a permanent structure or a building that's occupiable on that property before a permanent sign can be erected. Number 6, some of the language for non-conforming signs has been moved to the chapter, Article 8 for nonconformities. And then the final major point that we addressed was that general incidental signs that are smaller than a square foot, so about this big, are allowed on all properties as long as they're not trying to circumvent the ordinance by putting multiple signs together to create an issue, to create a sign that is not otherwise permitted. In your packet, there was some information from the School of Government that gave an analysis of that Reed versus Town of Gilbert decision, and some of the difficulty in trying to draft an ordinance that would meet that Supreme Court decision and also be effective in trying to enforce and capture the community desires for regulating clutter, having too many signs. And so there's some limitations on how you can draft that ordinance. So it's a real challenge to do so. Also included the assessment from Vaughn that he provided on our ordinance. And then finally, the draft ordinance is in your packet. And certainly be ready to go over any specifics that you'd like. A lot of the same structure is in place from our current sign ordinance, but a few things in there that have been changed that I mentioned just previously. So with that, I'd be glad to answer questions. Vaughn's here to support or answer questions as well and support some of the decisions we're looking at.
Kevin, would you explain in detail what the Supreme Court strictly implied by content neutral? Give an example.
Well, maybe not so much detail, but simply, you cannot regulate a sign about what it says.
Okay.
Whatever the content is, that is not a basis for regulating signs. Size, style, location, it's content neutral. So one of the points that I made that each property can have a sign that's temporary. It can say real estate sign. We can't call them real estate signs anymore, but it's a temporary sign that's going to say this property is for sale. Political sign. Again, we can't call them political signs because that's content-based, but it's a temporary sign. Knowing that during the election period, there's a great number of signs that appear on all our streets. And so we're saying, during that period, we'll suspend the rules and allow up to 5 temporary signs. Doesn't say what kind. 5 signs per street frontage. So that's probably a little more detailed than I intended, but
Yeah,
gives you an idea.
Felt explanation for all.
Sure.
Here. So
On that, along with what you said, you're saying 5 signs per street front. Now, are you considering 321 business from the Hamptons all the way to Chatola, that only 5 signs could be put in that distance?
5 signs per street frontage per property.
Okay,
Every property.
every property.
The only difference in general business, they can be larger. They can be up to 16 square feet.
And does this bring us in compliance with ETJ, anything to do?
Yes,
with
everything under our
ETJ
jurisdiction.
And city limits also?
Yes, yes, sir. So the temporary signs applies townwide. Every property has that opportunity to have a temporary sign. One,
Sandwich boards, and, I mean, can we call them sandwich boards if we can't call them?
you can call them sandwich board.
That's a temporary sign, right? So each property's allowed to have sandwich boards?
It's in here.
the way it's read. Yes.
Vaughn knows more about specifics of the ordinance, but there is a definition of temporary sign. A typical sandwich board sign would not meet standards for the type of temporary sign as envisioned for this general use. And this goes back to something that Kevin mentioned earlier about real estate signs. When we were first working this new
So I say sandwich board because there's no yard in front of Six Pence. There's no yard in front of a lot of our businesses, so how can they have a temporary sign? I can't stick if they're having a sale or whatever, I think that's gonna be the first thing the businesses want clarified is, okay, so now I can have a temporary sign, but what does it look
You
like?
put it on their, if they can do something, they can put it on their property.
Put it in the
We regulate what goes on public property,
So the
so
sidewalks are
you-
considered public,
yes.
so
Yeah.
they can put it in their window.
Oh, yes, that has not changed. I mean, they can still put a sign in their window.
In
Kevin, I'd like to
section,
know
section
about the-
1617-4.1, any sign that by reason of size, location, shape, reflectivity, or manner of illumination constitutes a traffic hazard or is otherwise detrimental to public safety, which on the sidewalk it would be construed as, I would imagine. Wouldn't you think? So,
So, let's get specific. South Mark can have, temporary signs because that's private property. And, over here, I'm drawing a blank on the yellow, Martin House, that courtyard can have temporary signs on all that private property. But the businesses that have sidewalk cannot. I mean, they
That's the
should
way
be
it's-
able to have it.
that's the way it's read.
If the council would like to grant permits for encroachments in front of the sidewalk, then it can do so. Understand, they can still have signage. We're talking about temporary signs, and then
Right.
what's prohibited in section 16-17-4.9. So, the third page here. Any sign that is portable or not securely attached to a structure or to the ground, including A-frame, sandwich board, sidewalk, or curb signs. Those are prohibited. And that's the same as it is today. That's
So
not,
no sandwich boards in town, but the, South Mark and the Martin House can have 5 per building sign, 1 per building temporary sign every day.
yes.
Okay.
So there's,
And then 5 during the election period, which there are 2 a lot of times, primary
Not per building.
Per,
property.
Per problem.
Kevin,
okay.
in this redoing of your sign ordinance, did you change anything about the time limits that it was in the ordinance? Let me give you an example. At election time, we said you could put up a sign on October 1 or October 7, it could be up for 30 days, period. Then it had to come down. Did you change any of that?
Yeah, we did some clarification there.
Pardon me?
Yeah, we did some clarification on the time frame.
Okay, then here's the next question then. So that means that somebody can put a sign out on their property that says for rent, for sale, or whatever. What is temporary? The fact that you can pick it up? Or is there a time limit that you can have that sign out there?
It's
Can
not-
can I put a sign out in my yard for 365 days that says this house is for sale?
Yes. Yes. Now to go
Okay,
back.
then here's the next question. So then we have a sitch where people have things for rent in certain areas in our town. And they get one sign, or can they have more than one sign?
One.
It says for rent,
One. That's it.
365 days.
Yes, sir. The definition for sign, for a temporary sign, a temporary sign shall be defined as one which is designed and installed in a manner that makes it easily removable from its location of installation.
So
It's
I
not a
can put
time
sign
frame.
up- Can I put a sign up that says, if you love me, honk?
Yes.
The Supreme Court decision was unanimous.
So we could have those going all the way to down the street.
One on each property, yes.
One on each
Everybody on Sunset could list their property
Boy,
for
this is gonna
sale.
be quite an interesting little town.
What, but that's every town,
The alternative is you
Yeah, any town.
prohibit
all of them.
signs.
You what?
You can prohibit signs.
So it's all or nothing?
Not all,
It was
just
a
one.
9-0 decision of the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
It was decidedly, decided in favor of freedom of expression. Commercial, personal, political, religious, what have you, the justices decided unanimously, that the government doesn't need to be worried about what's on people's signs, if they allow them to be put up.
Or how many, or how long
Well,
they
that's,
stay, or how long they stay up?
no, all those things can be regulated. I think the policing, the practical implication of policing how long a content-neutral sign used to sell real estate that could also have a different message would be beyond the capability of most local governments to enforce.
Well, we used to have a regulation that said you could have a real estate sign, and for the weekend, or something like that, directional signs for the weekend. But after that, brother, they had to come down. Now, you telling me,
But you can't regulate based on what type of sign it is anymore. We can't say, well, you can have a yard sale sign, but you can't have a political sign.
Yeah.
Or a sign that says, slow down, drive like your kids live here. You can't say what type anymore. Everybody gets a sign, it's temporary, and there's not a time limit except, you asked the first question about during the election period, so that's in this section on temporary freestanding signs. Under subsection D, it says, the limit on number of permitted temporary freestanding signs shall be periodically modified in accordance with the following. Beginning on the 30th day prior to the beginning of early voting for any scheduled primary or election occurring within the jurisdiction of this ordinance. We'll suspend the rules. And ending on the 10th day following that primary or the election, we can have 5 signs. Now that could be 4, 3, 10, 20. You get to decide. Or none.
everything except on state roads.
That's correct. So we made the time period to conform to what the statute.
So I know that what you're
Okay.
saying about freedom of speech and all of that, and I appreciate it, but there are things that we can do at a local level that we can regulate. They give the blessing for the country, and then we can add like layers to it. So
Yes.
do we have to allow a sign every day of the year, a temporary sign every day of the year? I think we need to think about how many days of the year these temporary signs are, because,
I concur.
I mean,
So a real estate sign, if that's the
Right.
one that's most common.
right,
If you want to put a time limit, that means you gotta put a time limit on all.
On
All of them, not just one.
right, I hear you, I think, we can say a real estate sign for the time that property is
You
for
can't say
sale.
real estate, that's content.
You can't call it a real estate sign.
All signage.
Require that the sign.
All signs temporary have to be taken down in, we'll say 30 days, or 45, or something like that.
You can put them back up the next day.
Anyway, we're getting into the weeds.
Yeah, but we're
We are, but we, I mean,
we don't know much
We gotta
about.
get the weeds.
No, but I mean about regulation.
I know, but Jim, I can put a sign out, apples for sale.
That's right.
Do you really wanna see that every day as you get your stuff from the post office? Every
No,
day, apples for sale.
I don't, but that's what they say you can do.
Or we speak to this prohibition. By the way, do you plan to live a long time? Because we're gonna
He's
need you,
young.
because this is 26 pages of a lot of foolishness. in my opinion.
It's mostly your current ordinance.
It is.
Yeah.
I stand by my statement.
So Kevin, we've allowed rotary sandwich boards temporary to say where the auction is. We've allowed, for the artisan residence, and both of those are actually sandwich boards.
Yeah.
Well, those are town
Farmers
signs.
market too.
Those are our town signs. Is
Hold on.
this the same for us versus,
Those are our signs?
Hold on. The A-frames that you're talking about, this prohibition prohibiting those type of signs shall not apply to signs erected or placed by the town of Blowing Rock or to such signs authorized by town council for a special event. That language is still the same. That is not changed, it's not being anything
So we can
we
modified.
get sandwich boards, but nobody else does?
Honestly, and no one's gonna believe this, the town does not have to follow its own rules.
That's right.
Okay, I'm just,
What-
we can
that's-
clarify that.
So I have a.
But we do, I'm just saying, the town is not obligated to follow its own rules.
So, an off-premise sign, does the person who's putting the sign up have to own that piece of property?
No, but I would guess they'd have to get their permission.
You have to get permission. in
So they
writing.
don't have to,
In writing.
they have to get the permission of the owner that has a building on it, because it's off-premise, correct?
Right.
But they don't have to own that property. So somebody can
No.
allow them to.
No,
put it-
people have a business, they don't own the property necessarily, but they lease it, or rent it, or whatever. They can still put a sign up for their business. Now, there's a distinction between temporary sign that's 16 square feet on the bypass, or a permanent sign that's up to 45 square feet.
Right, right.
So if someone wanted to put a temporary sign on someone else's property, they would have to agree to it,
Right,
and it could be there,
right.
and everybody gets one. In
Okay.
addition to the permanent sign that would otherwise be allowed for
Okay.
where that business is.
I got it. So, speaking of policing this, a lot of signs go up when you go home. Just in
aware.
case you're not aware of that.
I'm aware, been
And
aware of that.
the people who are around are the police officers. And I think they need to be aware of the ordinance. Because there was a content sign, and there were 3 of the same content signs. There was one on the property, which I understand now they can have. But there was also one, on a corner on our property, and there was another one at the corner on our property that told people where the content sign was. So, I just think that maybe we need to, as a council, or get the police involved, that they know the rules for these, so that they can either be pulled or talk to the owner.
Yeah, we could
because-
certainly do that, and
Yeah.
we could sit down with Tony.
Because otherwise,
and
we're not
their staff.
enforcing them, Friday through Sunday.
As long as we don't have to hire a special officer and call him a sign officer.
Well, I think in many
It'll be
towns,
content neutral.
I think in many towns, the police are aware of what the ordinances are and what's legal and not legal. And I think, I just would feel better if they knew that, so that they could start talking about these signs. Because
I agree with you.
Because you can't work 24/7.
No, and this actually gives us
Meat.
clarification. Can I have a yard sale sign at my property? Yes.
Every day of the year.
Yes, absolutely.
So what does he want out of this?
Can I have one at the corner? If that person agrees that you can have it there, yes.
Okay, would you do me a favor, Kevin? And do us all a favor. I read over the original ordinances, the sign ordinances, which is fairly lengthy, okay? What in particular has changed from that original sign ordinance,
It's just 30 pages.
okay?
And then,
Well, I just pointed out 7 of the big things. There's,
And those are the changes to our current ordinance.
right, there are others in addition, but they're very minor. They're tweaks, they're clarifications to the language.
So essentially, our ordinance is the same.
well,
It
that's
has
what
been
the
put in
question I
a
asked.
content neutral text.
Right.
Yeah, I think
Also,
that was the question I asked. And usually, when you get something, historically, what we get is something like this. Here's the original, here's what's changed in yellow, right? That's usually, but.
But it's the whole
But this time
ordinance.
we got, I know, so you outlined it with 7 major topics that changed. Everything else, you're telling me is the same? Is that
Not
right?
everything.
The size, permanent signs, the size, the height, well, I think there was a change, we clarified some things about, corner properties in terms of permanent signage.
Right.
The additional signage when you're on, like, Valley Boulevard stayed the same.
Right.
And if you have a corner lot, each side can have one.
That's right. It used to be, that if you were on a corner and you had a building entrance on each side, each frontage, you could have a freestanding sign on each. We clarified that language to make it where you didn't have to go digging to find that.
But that has no reference to the Supreme Court decision, right?
That's right.
Okay, so you just took the liberty to make a few changes that you thought were necessary.
We did, along with Vaughn and our subcommittee and the planning board.
There's no doubt in my mind, we can let the police read this one time, they'll all memorize it, they'll know it. 26 pages. No question.
Can I, David,
Yes, sir.
did you guys go through this thing
With a
fine tooth comb? Huh?
Yes, sir.
And you love it?
Subcommittee meetings,
You loved it?
arguments, disagreements on
Okay.
some things, and
That's
the
good.
sign, for instance, was something that came
Okay.
to you folks because we had no particular way to tell you what you should do on it.
What about the time limit?
The time limit, you know, we had a lot of discussion about what the word temporary means.
Thank you.
And we settled on that temporary has to do with the nature of the structure, and how the signs are erected, than it does with a period of time or a duration of time. And as you can see, real estate signs, we have real estate signs. If you're gonna have a real estate sign, then you're gonna have, a Jim is Beautiful sign, or you're gonna have apples for sale sign. And if you put a 30-day limit on it, that's great. You pull it up on day 30, and then you wait 24 hours and you put it back in the ground. And it becomes almost unmanageable for one person to regulate every temporary sign in town, to know what day this sign is on day 20 or this sign is on day 2. So the content neutrality piece of it has a domino effect on a lot of pieces of the sign ordinance. And you're discovering what took us weeks to discover.
Good. Well, that ought to be fun then.
Question of time limit on signs, by the nature of time limit, you get back to content. You either have signs or you don't. So once you start dealing with limitation, it's content neutral. You would say that you cannot have a sign in Rock Rock on any property from August 1st to August 15th. Enforce it.
So the content of it would, so that's how we controlled it before, because of the content.
That's correct.
And now, because it's content neutral, we can't control how long.
So, there are certain types of signs, we try and preserve the usefulness of certain types of signs for how they have been used. And so, for instance, the church or the school, that would like to display what we would typically call a banner, can do so under circumstances that are prescribed, in the ordinance for a certain period of time. What those banners say is of no consequence really to the town. But that type of sign, specifically, we know it is usually displayed on those,
very different question. Are we in compliance with our signs right now? If we did this tomorrow, how many signs would we see change or be different? With these
Permanent signs?
Seven new things. That you deal with this every day and you get phone calls about whoever's sign and placement and all of that.
With permanent signs, there's not really a change. There's not anything that's going to require non-complying signs to be brought into compliance. We didn't change our ordinance enough to change the permanent signs that are out there that you see. Temporary signs, it gives flexibility to a lot of people and then restricts, in the same light, it restricts some other people that have multiple signs. Sandwich boards, yeah, they creep. They come out, and they got theirs up. I'm put mine up, and so it's a domino effect. It keeps going, and then we rein them back in.
So,
Now
can you give us a vague example of how it's going to rein in some? I see how it's going to practical jokes or whatever with temporary signs is going to be a free-for-all for a while, and we're going to have to see how that works out maybe. But what are you seeing as reining in? And are pink flamingos temporary signs? I mean, content neutral. We're not.
Pink flamingo. For your birthday. Is that?
I mean, what are you seeing as reining in? So you
I'll
get
tell-
one pink flamingo.
Vaughn has more experience dealing with other communities. I deal with this one. I don't know about the pink flamingos.
I wouldn't typically think that would fall.
That'd be yard ornaments, that wouldn't be a sign.
Okay.
Yard art.
So if I may ask, so essentially, Kevin, what you're looking for is approval for these changes in our ordinances for signage. Of course, the council can come back and put restrictions on some of these as they see fit, as long as we follow the Supreme Court's ruling. Am I correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Our current ordinance is out of step with the Supreme Court decision, as are many across the country. But you've asked us to look at it because it's something, we don't want to be outside of it and then get into a lawsuit and then, well, you're not following the Supreme Court decision. So that's why we put the work in to get to that point.
Yeah, Kevin, are there other little communities around here that are adopting this? Is Boone, are they adopting this?
Beach Mountain did
Did Beach Mountain do it?
a couple of years ago.
What do we hear from our citizens on this aspect? If you would like to speak, please come up to the podium.
I'll leave a copy of the ordinance right here, so find what you want.
Would any of you like to have comments on this?
Supreme Court.
I'd like to hear Karen Hedrick,
I'm sorry?
I'd like to hear from you because of history. You know,
I'm thinking.
Could you come up, Karen, so we could?
I'm trying to absorb all of this. I guess my first recommendation would be maybe to table it so everybody understood it more. But, I mean, when we first started Southmark, we basically helped the town write that ordinance because it was so new in terms of boards, of sandblasted signs and square footage and everything else. I would hope, I mean, there's so much to, could anybody tell me when this Supreme Court decision actually, when the vote was? Was it recently, or has this been going on a long time? Okay, so it's very recent.
When?
June 25th.
2015.
Okay, so for a couple of years, but this is the first time we've had this discussion, is that correct?
Well, it was mentioned early on, and that's when it was brought to planning to look into this and get outside suggestions and recommendations. Am I correct?
They knew that we needed to review it to see whether we were in compliance or not.
Well, I mean,
these are turbulent times, I think we all agree with, and, I mean, there's a big, broad area in terms of freedom of speech. I would hope that with what we have to do, that hopefully only maybe 1% of our population would be a crackpot in such to, you know, I mean, we can't regulate it. Freedom of speech is freedom of speech. There's nothing that says somebody can't put a yard sign out that says Shriners, go home, we don't want you. Well, that wouldn't reflect the whole community's attitude about it, but you go, we don't need this in the front page of the Charlotte Observer either. So, I mean, I guess in some way, we just have to hope that we can deal with hopefully less than 1% that certainly wouldn't care about our community enough to go right to the edge of it. You know, in terms of Southmark, we've always been successful in working with Kevin. I mean, if I have, you and I, you've come down any number of times and I've said, what can you live with and what can you live with, you know, particularly with some other issues. I mean, I just literally, I won't say lost a tenant, but I made him an offer that he couldn't refuse to leave because I drove by one day and here was a huge chalkboard sign, sandwich board at the very front entrance of my property. And we had a big discussion about that, and I said, senior lease, you can't do this. And it was not a very pleasant situation, and I said, you know, even if the town would let you do this on my property, I'm not really, that's not in keeping with Southmark. So I think you have a twofold thing when you say, well, you can, like with the temporary signs, can you regulate how long they can be there, but then if they pull them up one day and a week later they put another one down, is that the same sign, same size, but another temporary sign? I think for all of you, that maybe you need to go to the drawing board and spend some time with Kevin, and I don't know, I'm confused, and I see all of you look like you're all confused, and I think we want the best for this town. We don't want any big glaring whatever, but at the same time, I mean, when I think of temporary signs, I think of political, I think of contractors who are working on a project and want to put their sign out, or their bath. I saw one recently for one of those walk-in tubs that was out there, you know, here on Green Hill. So there's your content part of it. So, I mean, I'm confused, so I don't know how anybody else, but I think this is a big can of worms that y'all have to work through. So, thank you. That's all
I
I
don't think
have to
we
say.
have a choice.
Thank you, Karen. No, we don't have a choice.
It sure sounds
Well, I
like,
think the point is, it's either all or nothing. We
Well, that's
either
exactly-
limit all the signs,
well, it's
we
just,
can't pick and choose because of content.
Right.
So that's
What-
basically what is that correct, Kevin?
so, it seems to me
Which is a
we have to
enforcing
approve this.
nightmare.
And then if and we see how it goes, and if it's abused, then that's another then that's another conversation.
So we can't investigate this till everybody forgets about it.
Well, I think that, from what
Well, somebody's
David and Mike said, they hashed it
Somebody-
out. It sounds like y'all have hashed it out. And y'all are our people that hash it out for us, and so I'm good with moving forward. And I hope that, like Karen said, we'll respect each other and have a Blown Rock spirit about our signs and about our community and how proud we are of it, and keep true to that. And if we don't, then we'll come back here and figure it out.
Do we have any other citizens that would like to speak on this before I close the public hearing? Yes,
That's the
David.
one thing, I think it's important to note that the spirit and content of our existing sign ordinance is not changing. That really the changes the majority of the changes that are in this new ordinance have to do with content neutrality, which we, as you said, don't have a choice. We did take the opportunity to better organize the ordinance. There were some things that were not, that need to be in other places. And then took the opportunity to clarify some things that needed clarification. But the vast majority of the changes have to do with content neutrality.
Do we have a motion to close the public hearing?
So
Nice.
Second?
Wait a minute.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Mike.
Go ahead, please.
Just on the Reed case, was a case that was brought because the town wanted to prohibit religious organization from having a directional sign. And it became a dust up, and the lawyers got involved, and went to the Supreme Court. So it probably shouldn't have gone to begin with. It was just agreement on that. But now it's there, and we've got it. And the effort that we're making here is to have one avoid any question if there ever comes that sort of question before us.
Thank-
The basic problem was that the town was treating, was being discriminatory essentially in its application of the sign ordinance, favoring certain messages and activities over other types of messages and activities based on essentially the content of the sign.
Right.
So the church has been advertising their services with temporary signs. The town didn't want them to have, they were allowing commercial signs that would stay up for longer.
Okay,
So,
thank you. Oh, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second?
Second.
Any further discussion? No? All those in favor? Okay. Public hearing is closed. Now, do we have a motion to go forward with the signed ordinance?
I make a motion to approve as presented, and I thank the subcommittee who worked really hard on this.
Have a second? Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. All right, moving forward, we've got old business. Gosh, this is real old business. Manager evaluation form. Who brought this to the table? Sue, did you bring it to the table?
I'm not sure, but I'll ask if there are any. We've received it. We now have the scoring code, and open it up for,
Well, now, this was approved at the last council meeting. What are we reviewing
the
on this?
evaluation form was approved, not the scoring, because we approved the evaluation, and then we talked about the scoring after. So I just was gonna open it up, see if anybody had questions about the scoring.
I think,
Well, I haven't seen anything about the scoring.
Look
It's
on
on
page
the-
55.
Right.
You have this? You don't have this?
No, I do not have that.
In your packet on page
And we have
52.
not talked about it either. So that's what your whole thrust is, Sue?
If there are questions about the scoring, then I think we need, yes. Because the scoring's on page 55, we talked about totaling the points.
Okay, then is it simple mathematics?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Do you want to see it?
I gave him, I
I've
gave
already
him.
got it now.
Okay.
And then at the very end, it says if you got these number of points, this is what it means, these number of points. What it says.
Well, it's not in consideration, but I want to know if I fill this form out, do I have to sign it? Will it be like when I go vote in November, nobody knows how I voted?
We
And
haven't
I'm
talked,
re-
we haven't talked about that, but I can tell you how I feel about it.
Okay,
I feel that as part of the, one of the things we're responsible for is the town manager. So, I would think that if I was gonna evaluate somebody, that I would do it and then sign it, say, this is my evaluation of you. You read it, give me yours evaluation so I can read what you said about yourself, and we can talk about how and why. I scored you the way I did, and vice versa. Now, I don't know, that's how I feel about it. But if you don't want to sign it,
Well, don't worry, I'm not going to sign it.
okay?
Well, and there's another way, according to the School of Government that we looked at, is that you would take all the evaluations and you would make a report. And so that would be cumulative and would not
A
necessarily.
summary, you were talking about.
Summary.
Summary.
And you would not, need to put names in it.
You could do it that way too?
And then that as a group would be, presented to the management.
Well, I just wouldn't feel independent signing my name to something like this. I'm not gonna do it either.
Well, then that may be what we want to do is individually do the evaluation and then do a report or something. And then present it to the manager as a group.
So, let's move the question. Are we gonna adopt this as it is, or are we?
I make a motion to approve it as it is.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. All right. New business. The Charters of Freedom.
Mr. Lewis to join us again.
I think I've said enough,
Ladies and gentlemen, do y'all have questions for Mr.
but I'll
Bruce?
be glad to entertain any questions, Mr. Mayor.
I had just one question. What is the average time from start to finish to build one of these?
About a month. Now, sometimes it takes longer because of weather and other issues, especially as winter approaches. And when we'll, but we don't, we benefit zero by waiting. I mean, once we get approval, let me explain how we would go from here. As I said in my presentation, you pick the spot. If you want our staff to evaluate the spot, we will. But after you have selected a location and told us where you would like us to build it, we will send a letter of intent to the town. And it spells everything out. And then you would return a letter to us saying, yes, we accept your gift, and then we're willing to move forward with this. So, and then we construct. Now, I need to clarify a couple of things. In some of my slides today, you saw granite settings, and you saw Indiana limestone settings, and you saw brick settings. Now, in Western North Carolina, we have built a lot of brick settings. We're prepared at our cost, at no cost at all to the town, to build a brick setting. We have just finished in Henderson County a rock setting. Now, in Blowing Rock, that might be more appropriate to build a rock setting. If you were to choose Indiana limestone or granite, there's a gap between the money that we've made $20,000 available for construction. We can build a brick monument for $20,000. The Indiana limestone monument runs about 55. The granite setting runs about 65. If you were to choose one of those two materials, then we would have a gap that we would have to raise in order to construct something other than brick or rock.
I'm not sure how you got on our, I mean, I pulled a protocol question with the mural on our agenda. I'm not sure how you got on our agenda to go forward and us make a decision about this. Seems like you guys should go to BRAC, and BRAC does a recommendation to us, and then we go forward with this. So I don't know how you get to jump ahead of, I'm no offense to you, but
Well, I don't
mean,
take it as an offense.
Just because, I mean, somebody else has something they'd like to donate to our town and put in our town, we have a procedure, and I don't know how you got on this, that we're making a decision to
If,
put this in our, I
if-
mean, I feel like you should go through BRAC or planning or something like everything else does, so.
if you as a,
I'm not sure how you got on new
if you as a
business.
town council send this to BRAC, we'll go through BRAC.
That's what our procedures are.
Again, I'll take,
Yes or no, guys?
I'll
Big
take-
elephant in the room to me is where?
Well, but we haven't gone through our regular
Right.
motions
I
and
agree,
had
totally.
this as a recommendation for the town council, so I'm not sure, I appreciate the presentation, it was great, and I appreciate the Charters of Freedom and our Bill of Rights and everything, but I'm not sure why we're doing this discussion. I think there's steps before we talk about whether to do this or not for the town council.
I think you're right. I think
Motion to send
that
it
there's
to
something
Brian.
to be said about polling
Yes.
the schools, the school boards, the teachers. They're the ones that are probably gonna use it. There's a certain amount of people that are gonna be visitors that will use, who would be very interested in it. But I think we need to get I would like to get more of an idea of how much interest besides us,
Right.
besides us,
Right.
are people that would be interested in this. And how do we do it? And how do we do it? I don't know. Maybe we have people come down here or come down and see what,
Well, I think if you send it to BRAC, they'll get a feeling of that.
see.
I think
Well,
that's where it
well-
should go.
Yeah, I second that.
Do you think you ought to make a motion
I
to
wanna
send
make
it to
a
Brian?
motion that
Well-
We send this to BRAC.
What we're
Second.
seeing is reminiscent of the Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia. Because if anybody in here thinks the country's in a fuss now, you should read what went on in the summer of 1787 in Philadelphia.
All right.
I will tell you that there is one college, university in this country that teaches from the original documents of all of this. And you cannot graduate until you've taken one full semester of what he has showed us. That is a requirement in the school. And that's pretty darn good, I think.
We have a motion to send it to BRAC. Was that the motion?
Yeah, second.
Do we have a second?
We do.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion will be sent to BRAC for their review.
Okay.
We're not allowed at this point to ask a question, are we?
Normally not, dear. No.
Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. All right, moving forward, Sourwood Lane.
Yeah.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Sourwood.
This is a one-way street.
Yeah.
Maybe be one way. Where is that bid? So much paper here.
On Thursday, September 6th, we received bids for the Sourwood Lane waterline replacement project. Those bids came in after the council agenda package came out. So you should have in front of you, Hillary, the clerk made copies of our recommendation letter and the bid tab for that project, along with a map if there's any questions. 3 bids were received for that project. The low bid was from Iron Mountain Construction Company. They have, they're appropriately licensed. They worked for the town successfully on other projects before. They're located in Mountain City, Tennessee. There were two portions of the project. We had a base bid that included replacement of the water line, and this is along sections of all of Sourwood actually, a section of Goforth Road and Oak Street, and there's another street, depending on whether you call it Green Hill Woods or Sourwood, depending on what signs you go by. It includes the replacement of water lines in those areas and patching the pavement where the water line's installed, and then repaving the streets. There's also a little extra work associated with a bad sewer manhole in there. So that was the base bid of the project, and the base bid price from Iron Mountain was $575,086. We also took an alternate bid as part of the project to do some drainage improvements, adding some culverts, and where possible, widening the road to gain a couple more feet. What we did to do that was where that road is, as most mountain roads are, is cut on one side and fill on the other. So what we did in that process was to take the ditch line and pipe those ditch lines and pave the ditch line with a curb along the bank so that you have anywhere from 2 to 4 feet more street width in there. As reported last month, the sections of that road range from 8 to 12 feet wide, and this will give some more width where possible, and will include more drainage. There's been some drainage problems on other sections of Sourwood that we've talked about in the past, so this helps take care of those. The low bid for that alternate was $190,935. The waterline bid amount was lower than the budget estimate that we had prepared before we started this project, and by quite a bit. And then the remaining funds can come from, for the road and drainage work, can come from the remaining funds in the pavement project that was completed earlier this year, because we didn't spend all that. That project also came in under budget, so we had funds available. So we would recommend that the council approve the base bid with the alternate and set up a 5% contingency for that project. If you'll recall the discussions at last month's meeting regarding traffic in the area, there wasn't a decision made at that point to make any changes. There was some discussion about that, and some water services. Those things will be taken care of as part of the project. So I'll entertain any questions.
I thought last month we made the decision, or maybe I misheard you right there, that to make it one way during construction.
That's correct.
Okay.
Only during construction.
But
only
that's-
during
During
recess.
construction, correct.
Right, as narrow as that road, there'll be a lot of disruption during construction, but that is for a short period of time. But there's no plans were made to change it long-term.
Right.
And it'll be one way from Green Hill down.
There will be points where it will be one way both ways, because you won't be able to get through it for periods of time when the contractor's working.
But you'll detour for the residents,
Yes.
like we normally do for other.
Question to the manager. Does this contingency relate to the house where you and I have had the Bible read to us?
No, sir.
Does not?
There's not.
Is that gonna be taken care of? Is that not a part of this?
The private right-of-way that is the easement for Blue Ridge Energy was brought up, and that's the road or driveway that you're referring to, I think.
No,
No?
it's the road in front of this man's house.
Oh,
Green
Green
Hill
Hill
Woods.
Woods, yes, sir.
And
Yes,
that's
sir.
where I
That's
read
where
in here,
we
you're
plan
gonna
to start.
there.
That's right, we'll start the project there. That's David Trayton's email from yesterday that you were copied on. And I told him, yes, I told him all along that when we begin that project, we will begin it on the Green Hill Woods side to get that piece repaired first and paved before winter.
So you think this will curtail his email production?
I don't know if it will or not, but we're certainly trying to.
So Doug, what's the plan for Green Hill Woods?
The water line will be replaced on that section, and there's a sewer manhole in there that gets replaced, and then that road will be resurfaced.
Yeah.
Actually, that road will be torn up and the whole thing repaved.
Will it be any widening there at all, do you see?
There's there's very little because there's no more room to widen that road.
Yeah, you run into rock up there. Yeah.
What are your thoughts, guys?
I got a question. I want you to follow through with me on this. The budget was 637 originally. Then you had a $95,000 contingency, which came up to about 732,000 to do what? The base bid?
That was to do the water line and patch the road back just like it is.
Patch the road back with it. Okay. Then so that was the budget, and we approved that little sucker. Now, you said, all right, now we got an alternate. And we're gonna do some stormwater drainage improvements and widen the road where we can. And you're telling me we want $191,000 to do that,
Yes.
right? So that's, in my estimation, that's almost 40% more than the base bid was at 575. But then I added in the contingency of 95,000. So I'm struggling with if 732,000 was what we budgeted, and your price to do everything, the whole enchilada, is 766. That's about $20,000 more than what you'd budgeted.
Yes, but that
Yes.
that was 20, that's that much more, but that includes making the road wider, which wasn't in the original
I know,
plan.
but what my understanding is you got says here there's a $72,336 funding shortfall. I only see $20,000 shortfall.
Well, that 72 includes setting aside a 5% contingency, which is $38,300.
For the 38,000, so it's 38 plus the 22. So that's $60,000 rather than 72. Am I wrong?
I believe
Funny math.
the 637.94,
Sounds to me like you and your my
the
wife.
632 to 766 is about $34,000.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So that plus the 38 is where the $72,000 would come from the paving funds that we had left over from the paving project.
But it's not 200,000. It's not, you're not gonna spend 200,000 that's left over. You're only spending,
Right, about 200 is how much we have
36.
left over from
Yeah.
the first paving project. Well, I say the one we just completed.
okay, but so, again, it's 732 that was budgeted. You wanna spend 766. That's $34,000 extra. And you're gonna get that $34,000 from 200 grand that you didn't spend on another project.
On paving, yes.
Right. Okay. So it's.
Because
but
this
it's
is
not-
paving work.
But it's not 72,000.
Yeah, it's 32 plus the 38. See
Yes,
that
yeah,
contingency?
38. Yeah, excuse me, plus the 38. Yeah, contingency.
Right.
That's all we do, got it. Gotcha. Okay, thanks. I got it now.
Is it right on there, Jim, or not?
It's right.
That's right.
It's right on.
Okay,
It's right on. I just wanted to double check.
understand, okay.
That's all. It's a lot of money. That's $750,000 to do that road. Huh? Yeah,
In the water lines.
$750,000.
Did you
Yes,
talk to
It's a hell of a
Blue
lot of
Ridge about
driving.
the right of way and how any of this is gonna affect any of that?
Our plan with this project is to abandon the water line in the right of way. There's some water meters in there that will have to, and we've looked at it with town staff. There's 5 water meters, I think, totally through that right of way that will end up being relocated to Sourwood and to Green Hill Road, and those lines rerouted. And we've got
Have you
a,
talked to has somebody talked to Blue Ridge about that?
We have, their plans are to do that power line within the next 20 years.
Oh, good.
Oh, Marion told me
Be able to
sooner
look
than that,
down
so
on
not.
Guys, do we have a motion for this?
They compete with AT&T.
We have a motion to approve this.
I make a motion to approve Iron Mountain Construction Company to do the Sourwood Lane area. I guess it's more than just a water
Okay.
line replacement, the project.
And we have a second. All those in favor?
Aye. When will we
Passes.
start?
the contractor's eager to start. I brought the notice of award for Ed to sign so we can send them contracts in the next couple of days.
They're gonna do Green Hill Woods first,
Yes.
so that people
Okay.
can get out.
Moving forward, Park Avenue American Legion parking lot. I believe, Sue, you brought this to the table.
This is
limited
mine, I know,
3-hour parking.
There's no, parking restrictions right now except in front of the chamber and the library, down, Park Avenue and in front of, the American Legion. And we brought up Park Avenue, probably maybe 2.5, 3 years ago, and asked that that be monitored to help, the retailers, restaurants, and people that needed to get their customers there. What's been happening is that employees from the restaurants, instead of going to the American Legion parking deck, are parking down Park Avenue. So there's 21 parking spaces without the chamber and without the library, just down to Park Street, or Park Avenue, at the end, right where the fire station is. And then there's about another, Ed, did you count them, 30 maybe? In front of American Legion. That would just help increase how many parking places we have.
I had a slide with all of them, but it's not in there, so.
I think we got it.
Right now.
So I just wanted to bring that back up. Keep it so that we can help merchants and help restaurants, to have more parking. And limit things instead of, people parking there all day especially during the week and on the weekend.
I had the
Jennifer's got a comment.
Well, one thing that we need to think about is we rent the American Legion building, and it's not just on the weekends, it's throughout the week. And some people rent it for the whole day for meetings, some people rent it for half a day. So we have a half day rental in the morning, half day rental in the evening. So making the spaces in front of the Legion 3-hour parking would, it would hurt the people who are renting the building for their events. And that's the one area that if you rent the American Legion building, I tell people that they can block those spaces for their event. They cannot touch the parking deck and they can't touch Park Avenue, but they are allowed to save those spaces for their event because they do have elderly and people who can't walk as far or can't come up the stairs, that kind of thing. So that's just something to take into consideration when we rent that facility and are gonna have 3-hour parking.
How many wheelchair, spots do you have? Aren't there 3 or 4?
There's,
They're right in front of the Legion Hall.
Yeah.
right in front of the Legion, I don't know the exact.
So we're
Two.
Two.
2?
Just two.
Two.
So you're talking, you want to save those every day of the week?
I mean, the building is rented throughout the week. I mean, I can't say it's rented every day, every week, but I can tell you that we have events and meetings and things in that building, throughout the week and on the weekends.
So how are you keeping people that are visiting that aren't using the American Legion out of those spaces?
I don't. I only.
'Cause they are parking there.
I only tell people, and they are, but I tell people they have the parking deck that they are more than welcome to use, but if you have a wedding, like on a Saturday, I tell them if they get there early Saturday morning, go ahead and block the spaces, I leave it up to them. It's their choice.
Can we, say American Legion use only? I mean, your problem is everybody's parking there, so if you think that those places are being saved for meetings, they're not. So I think if you wanna do that,
I
then,
mean, I know the hospital uses it.
We do, we use it a lot for like nursing, and they're there like 7:30 to set up. It's not usually an issue for them to get the parking spaces they need for the day because they come so early.
I think that's part of why we're having such success to rent that property out, is it's level from that parking area right into the building. I think we should look at Wallingford and Park Avenue and leave that alone. And start with those two areas if you wanna do the 3 hours there, but
well, I would also like to document American Legion, because I think if that's your purpose of saving it, people are not, if they're renting it second half, those spaces are gone.
And I tell them, I don't guarantee any parking, but I do say, here are your areas that you can park in. You have a parking deck, you have Royville, there's Park Avenue, there's Wallingford, I mean, there's enough spaces around.
Yeah, I'm just thinking if you could, because your hours for rentals are when?
Morning is 8 to 1, and afternoon is 2 to 10 or 11.
Just an easy suggestion to really need, because I've been involved in that, in lots of events at American Legion, and there is no parking in Washington Public. You were talking about saying that the people who rented could block them off. Well, block them off with what? I think, and what we've had to do at South Park are those big orange cones. And I think you give them tables and chairs and everything. If you had enough cones there that maybe said American Legion parking only or private event, where the person who rents them has the option of going into the closet and they're there. And it's their responsibility during a paid event to go and block them off. Then maybe that's a win-win, because you're kind of saying to somebody, well, you can block them off. Well, block them off for what?
Well, most people will bring their own stuff. I mean, we just don't provide it for them. But I mean,
I think you're gonna create a headache there too for the parking person, or for Barfoot, is who is there that's rented the building that's parked there, and who's there that's parked there that's not for the building. I mean, unless you issue parking tickets, I mean, if they come and reserve a spot and they pull in there, who said that they're not with the Legion, and who said that they are? I mean, I can see the Park Avenue, I just think that it's gonna be a headache for the parking guy to try and do the Legion part, right?
Let's exclude that.
And I was gonna add on to that, and I mentioned this to Sue earlier. At our retreat, we briefly touched on discussing the limit of 3-hour parking, of redoing the parking again. And so, I don't mind if we do this, but it's something that I would like to see us put back on the agenda again for the retreat.
Yeah, I think it goes way beyond just a couple of streets.
Right.
I mean, if we don't take a look at this whole parking issue, and we are crazy.
Do you think we ought, Sue, do you
Which
think we
one?
ought
But
to
as
table
far
this
as
till
what's in front of
retreat
us,
and discuss it?
Well, I think they're in agreement about Park Avenue, so we can do that one. I think the question is what Jennifer brought up and how you are gonna, police that.
Well, what do you
So
do
what-
about what do you do with the people that work here in the town, in that where they park? Where are they gonna
Well,
park?
they should be parking in American Legion parking deck.
Well, what about the other people? Why can't they park there?
Well, Jennifer's point was that
First
there's
come, first
some
served.
of them are older, and that was why she wanted to save it.
Oh.
Correct?
The American Legion.
Right,
I'm just
she's-
saying that, you know, making that 3-hour parking, if you have an event there, you don't want your guests to come out with tickets all over their cars because they've been at your event for half a day or the whole day.
Okay, I've bent the rules so far, so David wishes to say something as well.
Proposal on the table somewhere, or project looming about Park Avenue being redone, the complete thing being redone?
Yes, it is gonna be
So
redone.
it seems like it's premature to include that.
Good point. Maybe we should just wait till Park Avenue's
Well,
done.
we were told that 3 years ago.
No, it's starting in October.
No. We were told 3 years ago we were gonna do Park Avenue, and it hasn't been done. This wasn't when you were, this was another manager.
Park Avenue.
Huh?
Construction's supposed to be.
We haven't approved Park Avenue, have we?
No,
So we have not approved Park Avenue.
Yes.
So it's,
wait a minute now.
Yes.
What are you
Oh,
talking
it's,
about?
yeah, Park Avenue.
it's been
It's
approved.
set.
Yes,
It's set.
It
We
was
approved that.
in the budget. We're working on quotes. We have quotes from 3 companies. It is to add curb, gutter, and ADA compliant sidewalk.
On the left side.
South side, right.
well, can we get parking on the right side? Can we get the signs for 3-hour parking on the right side?
There's not many places except for those in front of the chamber. And I don't know if the chamber.
There's 21 from Main Street
Main Street.
to Firehouse, excluding the chamber and excluding the library.
What are you gonna do about the residents down there that, live right on Park that may utilize one of those parking spaces?
They have their own. Everybody but the last person on Wallingford and Park Avenue have their own driveways.
They're on what?
Have their own driveways.
Yeah, that's understandable. I'm just saying, if they wanna utilize one spot,
Well, they can use it just like everybody else.
okay.
I mean, I don't think that's prohibiting
Keep in
them.
mind, we did agree to do Park Avenue. It's supposed to start at the end of October.
Except we're not supposed to have any overnight parking, are we?
That's
Oh,
true.
please, do not start that.
Are we or are we not?
There's
We're not
a-
supposed to, but
there's-
that's a myth.
There's no
No, it's a
overnight.
myth.
It's a myth.
Okay.
Oh, good point. I see what you're saying about the
You bet.
residents.
We look the other way.
So Sue, would you like to make a motion?
Some rules we'll enforce, other ones we
Right.
Well, I'd like to hear, are y'all willing to do Park Avenue?
Park Avenue, I have no problem with, because like I said, I would like for us to, and it's a horse of a different color, but to add this is a lot more than just this for tonight, to add this for January.
Okay. And I think address the parking issue, which we're gonna have to,
I think we need to.
we may have to be looking at meters.
No,
Well, that's
That's
for a different day.
I think
But
we
I'm
can
saying-
change it. We
Let's
can
go
change
ahead
it.
and address this.
So, Sue, are you, there's 16, maybe if I counted, and I've got my.
Where are ya?
I'm on page 61 of the packet, and I'm counting the spots, 1, 2, 3.
Are you on, Park Avenue?
I'm on Park Avenue.
Well, I can tell you they're 21 because I counted them.
Well, that's a moot point. I think you need
does
to
that
make your
include
motion.
those 2 that are reserved for the TDA?
There's 2 that's for chamber and TDA. That does not include them, and it does not include
So
the
they're-
library.
There are 23 then.
There's actually, 25, if you count the library too.
Well, moving forward, I think you ought to make your motion.
So we're,
We're only voting on Park Avenue.
right, but we're not gonna mess with the,
Left side.
The south side,
the south side.
correct. Just the north side.
So just the north side, and you wanna put a couple of signs up that say 3-hour parking. I mean, that's all we're
Do
doing.
you want Wallingford
Okay.
too? The spots, behind where Parks and Rec is?
That's actually marked
There-
on the building.
Yeah, that, over
Yeah, but
here, for employees, I mean, there might be
That's
1 or
employee
2.
Across from it, where the fence is.
Oh, along the hill there.
Why don't we have 3-year parking.
I did, honestly,
3 years.
Sue, I really don't think that people are parking there and shopping on Main Street.
That's where all the people who work.
They are on the weekend.
Stores, that's where they park.
Well, do we,
They're parking in front of the shops on Main
10
Street.
o'clock, it's 3/4 full.
Sue,
Don't tell me.
would you like to go forward and make a motion?
I make a motion that we add signs for 3-hour parking on the north side of Park Avenue and the west side of Wallingford. And behind Parks
On
and
the
Rec.
hill, on the hill.
Just
to-
on the hill part,
Yeah.
not Wallingford down.
On the hillside. Is that the side that
I don't understand that.
It's,
There's about 6 or 7 spaces.
okay.
Oh, okay.
yeah,
Not,
in front of
you
the
know,
postcard mural.
Right.
Do we have a second for Sue's motion?
It's not,
All those in favor?
aye.
I guess I should have said further discussion, but I think we've discussed it enough. Now, I've had a request for a 10-minute recess, so
Sure.
we'll take 10 minutes.
Huh?
For himself.
I have to go. But I was not asked, but yeah.
So you're not the one that was making that then?
No, it wasn't mine. I didn't say
Or breakfast.
Section 49 of 129. Let's see here. Next issue of discussion under new business would be the US Highway 321 landscape agreement.
Okay.
So we need to apologize to everybody because we allowed public discussion about that and. What? Oh, development, not landscape. Okay, gotcha. All right. Sorry?
In September of last year, we had Jeff Lackey from the North Carolina Department of Transportation here, gave a presentation to council and citizens regarding the landmark, quote, landscape plan that the town had worked out with the North Carolina Department of Transportation prior to construction or reconstruction of US 321. At that time, Jeff brought forward a plan, showed a very long presentation with lots of slides and drawings, and at that time, council gave approval for the landscape plan. He said that he would be working on that landscape plan and would be fine-tuning it and would come back. Basically, what they did was they told us some of the plants they're gonna plant, but they basically confirmed, you know, we're gonna do some of this here and some of this there, that kind of thing. And it was not one that, in the DOT's opinion, required that any further approval, because it wasn't a deviation from what they had previously said that it had already been approved. So we have had a number of words with them trying to get them to consider us in a little better way than they did on the landscaping that was done at the Parkway Bridge, which was planted and died and then was replanted basically at the end of the warranty period, which died. And so we didn't get the best deal on that, and our concern was that as they bring forward this landmark landscape plan, that we didn't want the same thing to happen. We didn't want them to go out there and plant $200,000 worth of plants or whatever it is, I don't know what it is. And us finding out 1 year later that, hey, most of it didn't come back and we're not gonna be able to do anything about it. So they have constructed a memorandum of understanding that you have in your packet. And this has been, I've looked at it, Brack has looked at it, Chris Pate has looked at it, Jennifer's looked at it. We've all had a little bit of input expressing our concern over the 12-month period was not long enough. for warranty. If you see on, I don't know what page it is, because my
Page
page is
two.
not, on maintenance,
Warranty.
section 6. Said planning, upon completion of the plannings, the department shall maintain said planning areas for a period of 18 months at no expense to the municipality. So we were able to negotiate a longer time frame to assure that the plants that they planted are established and growing before they're turned over to the municipality. So this is an agreement that is basically in concert with what they told us they would do. They have extended that agreement by 6 months, from 12 months to 18 months. And they are ready, when we're ready, we are to get the agreement signed, sent back to them. There's a place on it for the governing board to approve. Then the DOT will approve. And they are planning to start some form of this landscaping plan late this fall. We have asked them to try to defer plantings if they can until March, so that we don't have them go through this really harsh winter potential again. And they have agreed to that. So they are very much interested in pleasing us. They're very much interested in establishing a truly landscape plan that is going to be the envy of towns all over. It's unusual, as you know, anyway, that we get this plan because it is such an expensive plan. So anyway, you have a memorandum of understanding that they have asked that the town council approve, and we send it back to them so that they can approve it and get the documents in our hand.
Question. Has BRAC town staff or the public stakeholders actually looked at the plan?
It was a presentation in here in September last year.
Right, but I sent some information to Jeff Lackey, who had asked where were the areas that people were hearing noise. So he was gonna reconfigure those, like people that were getting it from their houses. So there were probably, I wanna say 8 areas where people had complained because they cut so many trees that they were hearing, highway noise. So that's why I wondered if y'all had seen the
I'll ask
updated.
Jennifer was in the meeting too to intervene, but basically they did cover specific areas where that had been addressed. He did concede that there was, they would try to help the situation, but there wasn't a tremendous amount that they could do that was really going to alleviate the noise. On those places where there are tall walls, they will try to plant landscaping against the wall, but the amount of noise absorption by the leaf material on any kind of plant that they plant is probably not going to provide the level of noise abatement that most people are hoping it will, but they will make an effort.
So there was a new plan, a different plan?
Yeah, he came in and showed us his plan, and there were even areas that on the plan he had, he thought there were going to be power lines, so he didn't have plans to plant as large of trees. But once we told him no, that the power was getting buried there, then he was going back and putting in larger trees. So wherever he could put in larger specimen trees, that's what he was doing, because he knew that there were.
He was talking about 20 to 25 feet specimens in most cases, so
Yes.
not, not
Okay.
6 or 8, 10 feet.
So he did get all that information that I sent.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
I have a couple of questions. Have you looked this over?
Yes,
Okay.
I didn't participate in the negotiation process.
It seems to me that under additional provisions, and this is after number 9, number 10, I remember when we were talking about us taking over the maintenance of this, that they told us that they had $10,000 a year designated as a cost in order to maintain that, and that they would give us the $10,000 per year to maintain it.
I don't know anything about that.
Well, that's what it was.
Wasn't
That's-
that the Parkway section?
No, it was the whole enchilada for all the medians.
How
They
far,
had- they had-
how far back was that, Jim, when they were talking about that? Was that when you first started talking about the landscape plans?
2 years ago.
Well, it was, no, it was before then.
Okay.
It was when this project started and when it, Ray, you remember that, don't you?
I don't think I was here then.
Okay. Anyway, it was 10 grand.
Well, I can't remember that, Jim, I'm gonna be honest with you.
That's okay.
I mean,
I can
they're
understand.
contributing at the parkway, they're contributing to the parkway.
Yeah.
I know they are. That was a separate deal. I'm talking about just maintenance. They said that because when we asked about the maintenance of the median, they said, all we've got is $10,000 to maintain that. That includes cutting the grass and maintaining that whole area.
If I may say, I don't think I was involved then, but I think I did attend that council meeting. If I'm not mistaken, DOT said that they would take care of $10,000 of not landscaping, but general maintenance.
But it was per year. I remember the guy
It
telling me.
may have been, but
Do you have any recollection, Kevin?
The only thing I remember was they would mow it for 4 times a year,
Yeah.
$450, and that's what they would give us. For us to mow it, as many times as we would.
That's about as close as you can get to what I remember. But
Geez, I must have had a dream.
Jim, can't we pull those minutes and find that? I mean, that
Most
was.
it should be, but it's at least 2 or 3 years ago. At that.
Well, I think
Okay,
they changed the
but we
plan
can
on
move
it.
on if you want.
Yeah.
But I remember 10 grand.
Well,
And I didn't make it up.
Jim, if I may say something, if we approve this, we still can go back and look at what their original commitment was. Could we not, Alan? Okay.
All I care about is bringing it up and say, hey, what happened to the 10 grand a year? We never said it. Oh, really? Okay. Well, then let's go back and check our minutes. And if they didn't say it, it's not in the minutes, guess what? We don't have a leg to stand on. Number 2, go to number 12. It says here that if we elect to hire somebody that doesn't work for the town, that's not employed by the town, they have to approve it. But it's our money. I don't understand that.
Well, I'm not sure I understand it's our money. It
I
is
mean,
our money,
we
and
gotta
that it
pay,
is taxpayer
we gotta
money.
pay it is taxpayers' money. Why do they
But
have
it
to
is
approve
statewide tax
any
money.
why do they have to approve?
It's not Blowing Rock tax money, it's statewide tax money.
If we're paying to maintain the median, and we elect to say, look, we're just not gonna, we're not gonna do that anymore with our town employees, we are gonna put that maintenance of that out to bid. They have the right, according to number 12, to either approve or disapprove the subcontractor.
It
Why?
It also says in there, though, that if we don't take care of it, then the town has to reimburse them. So I think they're looking out because they're investing in that.
Yeah, but
I
it's a
understand what you're
one-way,
saying.
this is a one-way deal, and then it says that if they decide to do something with those medians, okay? If they decide it, and we've got bushes and trees and all this lovely stuff, guess whose cost it is to take them out and replant them someplace else? Us.
I think that's if we move utilities.
No.
That's what I
If they
read.
decide to put say they decide to put a cut through one of those things, and we have some plants there, we have to pay for it. It says so in number, 8, and Number 7B, the last paragraph. All I'm saying, gang, is
It says that the municipality has the option to
So we
remove
get to
or
get those.
relocate.
Yeah,
Basically, we won't lose the funds.
We have to pay for it.
We have the option to move them.
We have the
okay.
option.
I just want you to know what you're getting in for.
so to me, when I read that,
That's all.
Jim, when I read that, it didn't bother me because, you know, we got to move and save a lot of trees when they did the work to begin with. So if we, I mean, they could just mow those down and pave over it with a new turn lane and us
I
not
think it's
have any.
wonderful the amount of money that they're spending to make it nice.
Well,
I'm thinking 5 to 10 years down the road, gang, if whatever changes, if they want to make the changes, they can come to you and say, we have decided the following.
Right, so we can go in there and save those big expensive trees and put them somewhere else in town instead of just seeing it cut down on the side of the road. That's what I
Well,
took that to mean.
Here's
could
one,
take it to be,
here's
but
one
I'm-
comment that I would like to say that concerns me.
So-
That we better jump on this money while we got it, because it says all terms of this agreement are dependent upon and subject to the allocation of funds for the purpose set forth in this agreement, and the agreement shall automatically terminate if funds cease to be available. So we got the funds, we better get them.
Well,
It's 400,000.
it's fine. Is that what it was?
Yeah.
It's 400.
Okay.
Are we contracting out mowing on that whole on 321?
We've been doing it.
You've been doing it.
Okay.
Have a motion?
Just
Yeah,
want you to know
affirmation.
about it.
Second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Moving forward, BRAC request regarding old fire station. Who would you like to, who is going to,
That is going to be Mrs. Melissa.
okay? Ms. Pickett?
Mr. Mayor and members of the council, my name is Melissa Pickett, and I come before you this evening as the chair of the Blowing Rock Appearance Advisory Commission. At the July 10th, 2018 Town Council meeting, the Blowing Rock Village Foundation presented their thoughts on the old firehouse as their proposed site for a cultural arts center, after which no formal motion was made or voted. Instead, the foundation was advised to continue to perform due diligence, to explore other locations, and to return indefinitely with their findings. Additionally, council offered to participate in a joint meeting with the Village Foundation. Tonight, BRAC asks that you reconsider this position and to move to remove the old firehouse from consideration as a viable option for a cultural arts center. You will remember that on May 9th, 2017, the town and the Village Foundation signed a memorandum of agreement where the Village Foundation committed to report multiple items to the council in 12 months. In spite of taking 15 months rather than the agreed upon 12, the Village Foundation presentation seemed to leave some of the items unanswered at the July 10th, 2018 Town Council. Thankfully, at the same meeting, council expressed the importance of the landscaping department's use of the old firehouse and challenged the foundation to articulate their proposal for a conveniently located replacement storage facility that would not be a burden to taxpayers. BRAC is the town-appointed board that supports the Parks and Recreation Department, and as such, we support the landscaping department as well. Over the past numerous years, we have seen firsthand that the building has been utilized efficiently and not just as a lawnmower shed. That said, it is worth noting that this year's approved Parks and Recreation budget includes monies for much-needed maintenance and improvements, some of which has gone unspent in the name of fiscal responsibility pending council's disposition of the old firehouse. At this time, our 4-person landscaping department has a tremendous workload. Before long, they will be taking on the important responsibility of the Elite 321 bypass project, at which time they will most likely need additional staff and equipment, as well as ready access to equipment. Therefore, our board believes that now is the time to declare the old firehouse as permanent space for the Parks and Recreation landscaping departments. Please also consider that at the October 10th, 2017 Town Council meeting, Council agreed to sequentially proceed with a conceptual design plan linking Main Street to Broyhill Park that was developed by the Virginia Tech Work Group in concert with Parks and Recreation and BRAC. BRAC is poised to explore costs and to pursue grants for the first two of the plan's projects, specifically the Park Avenue portion and the area behind the tennis courts that will provide another ADA access to Memorial Park. These could be accomplished in tandem with updates that the town has already planned. However, both of these projects are situated around the old firehouse. Our board is not comfortable applying for grants that might be undone by an as-yet undetermined alternate use of the old firehouse. I thank you for your consideration of my board's request. I'm prepared to answer any questions you might have.
Melissa, I appreciate you coming before us. I thought it was very clear, and you mentioned it in that letter, that we told them to explore other locations.
Yes, ma'am. Our board, though, doesn't feel that the firehouse was taken off as an option for them.
Explore other locations means don't do it here.
I don't
To
think
me.
that was made clear to the Village Foundation, though.
No? That's what I meant. What did y'all mean by that?
I think that's what we said, is that,
It's too-
that there are other options in town, and they need to look for it. And as far as the meeting with town council, that was their recommendation, we never answered the request. So, I don't think we need to address your letter. I don't think we need to spell it out. I think we each gave our opinion, and you need to respect that. That's our job to do, to talk to them like we did, and that's what we did. If Parks and Rec doesn't want to spend the money that we have allocated, then I think that needs to be between the manager and the department head.
The general concern is, though, the general public doesn't understand that you didn't tell them that the firehouse is not an option.
I don't know how
they
you
were
can even
very-
say that.
Yeah, they were,
And I don't think we need to backtrack and embarrass the Village Foundation. They've done a lot for this town. And I think you're putting us in an awful spot. And I gotta tell you, I don't appreciate it. I think you're not being respectful to the council. And I
That is-
think if, you know, this is only as good as the council that's sitting here. So, I mean,
That was not the intention of this at all.
well, I think that you might have perhaps rethought your letter.
May I say something, Sue? Melissa? One, thank you for your time. Sue, thank you for all that you've done. I think that reading through the notes from that meeting, we did leave a partial open door. They assumed we were leaving a partial open door, okay, for the old firehouse. And so I think, in some respects, I think Melissa and Brack have come to us because of you guys, because they want to feel like that they're not getting short-sighted, you know, if they go forward. I mean, I remember that night well. I mean, everybody spoke their piece, okay? But nobody said, and correct me if I'm mistaken, but nobody said you are not going to use the firehouse in any time in the near future.
No, we didn't, but I don't think they had any problem understanding what I said to them.
No. But, okay, but I think, you know, everybody's got a good point here. I really do, Sue.
Thank you for your time.
Melissa, I think you,
I'm good. Thank you for your time. And by the way, you can have my resignation as the chair of BRAC, too.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, how would you like to go forward with this?
Call the next case.
I think we need to discuss if there needs to be clarification. I thought it was clear that, I think when I started this conversation, I'm sorry it went sour, but my intention was explore other options meant not the firehouse. And that's when I said, what were y'all's intentions? So I think she brought up a valid point, if it's not clear. So in some way, if it's not clear, we need to make it clear to the community. And I appreciate Melissa bringing it up because BRAC is in charge of moving the landscaping and all of that stuff forward. And we do have plans. She has a valid point. We do have plans to spend money all the way around there, Park Avenue, the sidewalks, we are moving forward with all those projects. I do not see, I'm not gonna speak for y'all. I do not see in moving all those projects forward, if we intend to do something else with the old fire station, then we need to address moving all of those other projects forward.
Well, our answer, I thought, a month ago was a little ambiguous. I mean, I just thought it was. And,
Of course, I mean,
but I don't know that they assumed that because I've had a couple talks with a couple of them, and I think they're moving very much away from the fire station.
yeah, let me address this. I remember that when they brought this, they were gonna raise the money and this is what they wanted to do with it. And they missed the target. So we had this meeting. And I thought that the presentation was at best sophomoric. I mean, there was, after a whole year, not much was new shared with us. So I remember telling them that I said, you know, there's other things we can do. We still have plans in our hands of how we could add on to and utilize the existing American Legion building, which would make it anything that we wanted to build. And we are not in a position to go out and build a new building for all that equipment. So I said, whatever things we would even work out, that would be part of the package. And it won't be free. So when I talked to Aldrich about it at the end, I said, John, when you're thinking about raising money for the firehouse, let me tell you, you better have the component for a new building for all that stuff that's in there now. Because we're not gonna be, because we don't have the money to build it. So I said, so there's this issue that one, we can add on to an existing building we already have. Number one issue. So why would we invest more money into a building that could eventually one day be torn down and something else built there? Who knows? But we're not gonna do that. And then I said, here's this other issue. So I don't know how they could have walked out of here with any other feeling other than we're not going to do anything with that. If you want to take some more time until we decide what we're going to do with that building, have at it. That's up to you. But we aren't going to participate. This town isn't. We've got our plate full with what we're doing right now with our money. Now that's the way I thought that this thing was left. I've talked to
Jim Pitts.
what's his name?
Jim Pitts?
No, I haven't talked to
John
Pitts.
Aldrich.
John Aldrich?
Jim.
Jim Bibb?
No.
John Aldrich.
John Aldrich and the guy who was former president.
Jim.
Anyway, two people. The one of them's on his board. And I told him that. I said, I don't think you're gonna make any headway with the council on redoing the firehouse. Because that would mean that you're also gonna have to build us a new building for storage of equipment. So,
And I also said.
and that was just last week.
Well, we own the building. Whatever happens, We own the building. We say what it can be, when it can be,
Right.
no matter. We've ordered a new door, isn't that right?
Well, we
Is the
have
door
one
here?
to order as soon as our loan package is approved.
Okay, don't put that up.
Ed, we're moving forward with the Virginia, with Tech.
Yes, but it doesn't necessarily involve anything regarding the old firehouse.
It's behind
That's
it.
right.
But
behind it.
Park Avenue does.
But we're not giving
Not
Park
with,
Avenue.
Make a little case, but, I mean, it doesn't have a red tag on that either.
Well, it could, because they proposed extending the
Yes.
front of the building.
That's right. If they were to extend the building, that does enter into that project.
But I think there are a lot of ifs. I agree with what Jim said, is we said, we don't think it's fair for the taxpayers to have to put that equipment somewhere else. And that would need to be provided by them for us to agree to that. In addition, their, plan was 50% less seats than what the school auditorium was. So that didn't make sense. And it was also fixed, when they had originally come to us, they were gonna be movable, so it would be a community area. So they had changed a lot in there, and I think we brought all those points up.
We suggested the school to them anyway.
The last comment about that particular topic at your July council meeting is, quote, "Council left the option open for the task force to pursue and come back with more information at a later date."
That's
Word
exactly right.
ambiguous.
That's
But
what
I
it-
think I would never stifle, citizens from the creativity, and that's what they did at Laurel Park, but it doesn't mean that we're gonna accept it. We're gonna put a $10,000 door, correct?
Yeah, we're actually going with an insulated door with windows in it now, it's 14.
Oh, went up, okay. We budgeted 10,000, so I
That's
know
right.
you're finding that 4,000 somewhere else.
That's right.
But, any council that's sitting here is gonna consider what we have put into the area and what's the plans are. We can't sit here, we waited, 15 months for them to come back with a plan, and as Jim said, it really wasn't a plan. And so, I think we made our decision. I'm not sure why there's confusion, but I think we need to go ahead with the plans that we've made, and if they come back, we'll
And I
look at
can
that.
tell you that is the way we are proceeding, as though the answer was that it's off the table, because if we're gonna spend money on an expensive door, obviously, we're not gonna do that if it's not off the table. So we're considering it to be off the table. They are not. I know for a fact, they are not.
Well, and I think if they come back with information, we'll deal with them. But I say go ahead and get your garage door, because I've been hearing about that garage door need, about 3 years. So,
Well,
have it.
you've actually heard what you just said?
Yes, sir.
I heard a little something different, but,
They are also pursuing other options, and they are very much, I think, still looking at the school.
there's some, discontent among that group that it's too small.
I've heard that too.
Okay.
I think they're frankly out of the notion of using the building, but that's not us saying you can't use it.
I know that, I talked to John yesterday, yesterday. I talked to him yesterday, and I told him, I said, if you guys wanna do something, pick another project that you and the town can get involved with. Like redoing this park outing, this,
Royal Park.
for the one that Virginia Tech did.
Oh.
Something like that. I said, get something like that. But forget about but I just told him, I told him, forget about the firehouse. DOA.
All right.
I know that.
If that's
Okay,
you,
when-
Jim,
hey, wait a minute.
we need
Wait.
the consensus of the board.
When I-
Nothing takes the place of plain talk.
When I met with John the other day, I met with him Monday. He wanted to discuss projects that the foundation could focus on. he came up with a few options. Number one was the Virginia Tech program at Legion Hall. I think they're leaning towards that being a primary focus. Secondary focus is going to be Sunset, Gateway, working on that in the coming year and a half, 2 years. At the same time, they were meeting with the school system, okay, to discuss the auditorium. This is what he told me on Monday.
I think they're just trying to leave all their options open.
Yeah. So that's all I know about it. So just to fill you all in.
Okay.
Well, I'm convinced their feelings won't be hurt if we say tonight the fire station is not available to anybody but the town of Blowing Rock right now.
I'm good with that. I thought that was clear from the meeting.
Town hall.
I thought we were trying to say it in the nicest possible way, because they spent a lot of time.
Yes, you're right.
But if we were vague to the community or whatever,
I make a motion that we instruct the manager, I'll just throw this out, you can modify it. Instruct the manager to inform the village foundation that the fire station is not available for any usage other than what the town is presently using it for.
Do we have a second?
second.
Do we have any further discussion?
Yeah, just only in the point of, we're trying to clarify some previous actions that we talked about, and we want to make sure that it's clear to everybody, all parties concerned.
Okay, point taken.
That's
All
all.
those in favor? All those opposed?
Well, and I
Motion
appreciate Melissa bringing that to us, because if it, in the community, it's not clear, we need to make it clear. And we probably need to apologize to Melissa about how we handled this.
Why?
We don't need this drama in our little town.
Okay, moving forward,
Terry.
let's see, manager's report.
Wait a minute, we have the public art policy. Has this been passed by us?
Yeah.
I think it needs some revision.
It needs some revision.
So shouldn't we put that in Brack's?
No,
Well, we
because they've
gotta-
already seen it. I'd bring it back to October
We
for us
gotta
to look at
tell
it, because
them
I
about
didn't know, when did we pass this?
I'd have to go back up to the date, was it September of last year?
Yeah.
What we found was, it was put in the hands of Brett, am I correct, Heather? And it was not. So from my understanding is the original public art policy that you all passed, you, instead of having a public art committee separate, you all voted to let BRAC be the ones who implemented the public art policy. So basically, Ed and I went through and changed it from public art committee to BRAC, because the words obviously work together. So we changed the information around to BRAC.
I don't think we ever passed the policy, because we have not seen one.
We discussed that at retreat.
Y'all had a policy.
Yeah, what we said was that, that there were parts of this we didn't agree with. So we have never, because I think there is some work that needs to be done on this.
And I think that's kind of when BRAC had, when we've been talking about public art, and part of this was the mural, that we were discussing, at the end. There were some things that BRAC were looking through that said, we need to look at this and change it. So, if you would like, we can discuss this in our BRAC meeting on Thursday and bring it back to you guys in October for approval, or to be looked at.
I thought that's what this is. This is y'all doing that and bringing it to us for approval.
That is what,
Except it was hooked with the mural, so when we
That's
took it off
correct.
the agenda.
That was part of the F under new business, which we pulled from the agenda. Okay? So as far as I'm concerned, that's not part of the agenda right now. That is something we can address at the next meeting
No, no, F was consideration of a mural. It wasn't,
At the Blowing Rock Inn.
it wasn't adopting the public art policy.
This public art policy was included as information to help you with your mural.
Yes, that's what it was
But
for.
my point is, we've never adopted this, which is what I just heard Hillary tell us. So we don't really have a policy.
Right.
And,
It definitely needs to come back then.
and
Yeah,
so, this is their recommendation, so we can work on this, is that correct?
Sure.
Yes, and you're more than welcome to work on whatever you want to, but I know that they wanted to go back through and address some things that they have noticed, because we've had other people come to us about public art, and there's things in there that they want to work on. So, I mean,
So this isn't their final copy for us to approve.
Okay,
It's not for approval tonight.
right.
It's not.
But it's
If-
never
if-
been.
but if-
Right.
So when is this gonna be discussed?
we have a BRAC meeting on Thursday.
Okay, here's a couple of things that I just noticed that you might bring up. Number one is that when you're talking about public art or the place, it seems to me that if the council is gonna be involved in accepting whatever we're gonna do with public art, then it should be confined to an area, like town center and general business, etc., not by street name or location, okay? And, you know, like Memorial Park and Cannon Park, because one day it could be down Morris Street and somebody, it could be private, it could be a piece of private artwork in town center or the general business district that we're saying, no, that's not appropriate for our town.
Ladies, gentlemen, this is not part of this agenda.
And I'm just telling her what she's gonna have a meeting about, okay? So that's where I think that you need to bring some clarity to this. Not, because I can just imagine somebody up in Green Hill saying, I wanna put this in my yard. Well, right now, they can do whatever they wanna do. But it says here, on a public street. Well, look at all the public streets we got. If anybody can see it from a public street, we're supposed to approve. It's crazy.
Well, that's
Okay,
for another
enough.
day.
Thank you.
Okay, Ed, manager's report.
Do we not have to vote on that item though?
No, we pulled it
Or
out.
have
Because-
to
They're
vote?
gonna
No,
take
because it was lumped in on the mural thing.
There's
they're gonna
nothing,
redo it.
We took it off
I don't see where it's lumped in myself.
here.
We
It's under
voted, we
the
voted for BRAC,
attachments.
we pulled the consideration of the mural.
Consideration of mural, and they lumped it in under the attachment.
Thomas, it's on the,
Go to,
oh, no, it's not, but I can get it.
71.
All right, we're moving forward with the manager's report.
Okay. All right, just want to inform council that the line painting continues with several different roads receiving sideline stripes, including Green Street, Spruce Road, Sunset Drive, Stunecliff Drive, Rickard Drive, Mockingbird Lane, Morning Glory Lane, Laurel Grove Lane, Grassy Knoll, Morningside Drive, Rainy Street, Birch Street Extension, and Hill Street. We've used about 165 gallons of white paint on those sidelines, so painting does continue as weather permits. The town continues right away. We discussed this, I think, at the June retreat. A lot of areas in town have vegetation growing over the roadways, and we have been working on that steadily. It's a slow process because we are having to do it manually with loppers and hedge trimmers and that kind of thing. But we are, what did I do? I touched something. We are continuing with that road vegetation clearing. I can tell you that, I don't know if council has heard anything about it. I certainly have. We've had some people angry. But anyway, we are doing it in the interest of visibility and safety for drivers and for our children.
We just need to make it consistent, because there are areas still on Dogwood and going up to, on Laurel Lane that have not been cut, that were brought up 2 years ago.
and areas on it that have been cut recently?
Not on those areas.
Okay.
So there's some areas they're choosing, but there's one on Dogwood that I brought up 2 years ago that has not been cut.
Well, we've leaned
Let's
over
get with you
backwards,
on that one and make sure I understand
Okay.
which one that is.
leaned over backwards about this to the owners.
Yeah, we have announced it in newsletters, we've announced it in water bills, we've announced it on the website. We have tried to make people aware of how much this needs to be done. It still meets with the resistance, and I understand that resistance.
Well, but we gave them the option of doing it themselves.
Right,
That's right.
we do.
Yeah.
Now, let me just ask a quick question. It's not on the agenda, Charlie, so don't hate me up here. I've seen weeds this high on some of our
Laurel Lane.
shoulders. I mean, I thought we used to mow shoulders.
We do mow shoulders as far as I know. I don't know if there's some that have been missed.
Well, all up and down Green Hill Road.
Okay. Right. I will definitely look into Green Hill Road.
Okay.
Ed, thanks for painting the side, the road where you turn for the school. That was very dangerous corner. I don't know how that came up, but,
Okay.
people are still getting used to swinging wide there, but thank you for doing that.
That was on Hinkle.
Well,
That was excellent, yeah.
That's more
we
street.
did have, I can tell you, we
Hinkle,
did
too.
have some rather unusual opposition expressed about the line painting. I'll tell you about it later. Just wanted to let you know that Tasha Johnson, our AP clerk, has just recently completed her finance training at UNC School of Government, and she passed.
Yay.
We had included the purchase of 3 trucks in our budget for this year. Looked at buying trucks from several different dealerships, both Toyota, Ford, and Chevrolet, and have gone through materials from state contract, also through materials from the Sheriff's Association, and it frankly got a little bit confusing for me eventually because I had not been readily involved in those negotiations, so I just decided that I was gonna go negotiate those sales myself, and we ended up buying 3 Toyota pickups and saved the town approximately $12,000.
Where'd you buy them from?
Toyota, modern Toyota and Boone.
Did you get a car out of it?
No, I do not get a car.
He gets an allowance big enough to buy one.
This one is actually old new. We rented an electric road sign, the kind that has, where you can put text and arrows to have traffic move over. We rented that for the purpose of getting the signage on all the mast arms complete. We could not get the DOTs or AT&Ts on when we needed it. It was only when they needed it, when they didn't need it. So we rented one in Hickory, and we have now completed the mast arm signage on Valley Boulevard. We have a change to the Apple Cart route. Starting this past Friday, we have a new route that includes a stop at Tanger. And that's really the only change. It goes, instead of turning on to Ransom off of North Main, it goes on out to Tanger to a specific stop there, and then travels south on Valley Boulevard to Sunset, and turns right on Sunset, and 1 block down there where they would have been anyway. We felt like that this was necessary, as ridership had not been what we had hoped for or expected. And everybody kept telling us it's because you didn't put Tanger. Well, we'll see if it's because we didn't put Tanger. Our ridership has been anywhere from 0 riders per day to 28 riders per day. And we would like to firm that up, and we think with parking areas at Tanger, and Tanger was very desirable to have a stop there. We'll see what it does. I'll give you a report at the next meeting.
Oh, sorry, go right ahead.
How are we marketing that?
We are marketing that on the website. We have printed maps with the schedule and have distributed those door to door to businesses. Lots of businesses have the file where they can print it themselves. It is in the newsletter, so I think we've done pretty much the practical things. In addition to that, one other measure that we decided to do, we had been putting the signs up on Friday morning and taking them down on Saturday night because the shuttle only ran on Friday and Saturday. Well, we have now had another smaller sign made to print to under it that gives the schedule. It says Friday 11 to 6 and Saturday 11 to 5. So we are now leaving those signs up at their locations on a permanent basis as advertising, and now they'll see. We were afraid to do that before because we were afraid people would expect to see it on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday through Thursday.
Well, to add on with that, one thing that I thought that hurt us too, it was the end of August, or close to the end of August, before we ever got the signs out that actually told anybody what Apple Cart was. I mean, when you drive into Blowing Rock and you see a sign that says Apple Cart, they don't tell you apple from apple butter, you know.
We know, but they don't do it.
Right. So the whole summer was pretty much gone before we got the signs out that says free shuttle. You know, to let you know what Apple Cart is, you know. So I think that, you know,
That
we
hurt
didn't
us.
get a fair judgment of what we would have gotten out of it then because, you know, during the week now,
Well, that was Doug's recommendation that we put the little sign on there that gave the hours and said free shuttle that we just attached to the post.
Well,
that
does
we
the
made.
bus itself say shuttle on it?
It says free
Yeah,
shuttle.
it says free shuttle.
So have you probably already thought of talking to Ronnie and let everybody at Tanger know?
Yeah, he's doing that through
Is
his
he helping us?
in-house communication, and they have maps.
Okay. And what about the app?
The app, I got an email from Jessica Brannick-Welburn today. Now, the Blowing Rock app, if you have an Android device, has been up and running for about a month. But we didn't want to introduce it until we had both, and she has had considerable trouble with Apple. But as of the email yesterday, she thinks it will be up and running within 48 hours. There's no guarantee. So if you will go to the App Store for Apple and type in Blowing Rock app, it's going to confuse you a little bit because it's going to say Blowing Rock HCCOG. But it is the COG. COG is the one that made the app for us. So it says HCCOG, so that's the right app. And if you go to the Google Play Store, it is the same way, Blowing Rock, and it's going to say HCCOG. It works great, at least on the Android. I haven't been able to experience it on my Apple yet, but I'm going to download it tomorrow, hopefully.
and they're working on, if you don't mind me adding on,
Sure.
the COG's also working on, building onto that, you know, like I had told you, they're working for the town of Wilkesboro right now to where, you know, you can go on there and pull up a street, pull it right down to the house, pull it up to who owns the house, to where the water lines are, where the sewer lines are. They're really moving forward fast with this app, and it's something I hope that eventually will.
That is a different app, and we already have that.
Right.
Yeah, and aren't they adding the motorcycles too?
Yeah, that's on there.
Motorcycle.
The motorcycle parking, all the public restrooms, all the public parks. There's a lot of information that'll be contained within this. I mean, you can go click on a parking lot and it'll tell you with the location and how many parking places are in it and how many of them are handicapped.
So I'm looking for Blowing Rock apps.
Yeah, are you Apple? You're Apple.
I'm
Go to the
Apple.
App Store. It's not going to be there yet.
Oh,
48 hours, he said.
Hopefully 48 hours.
okay.
Can't wait.
Unless you got a droid.
All right, the Friends of Jenny Stevens will have their dedication ceremony this coming Sunday, the 16th Sunday, at 4:30 p.m. at the corner of Main and Chestnut to rename Chestnut Street to Jenny Stevens Lane. Until the end of the year, both signs will coexist. It will say Chestnut Street and Jenny Stevens Lane, effective January 1. This was a transition we had to work out with the county. Effective January 1, it will be known as Jenny Stevens Lane only.
Was it a problem for Brom?
No, Brom weighed in and it wasn't a problem when we initially talked to them. It became a little bit of a problem as they realized what they had done, but they worked it out among themselves.
Ed, you might want to mention too that that will be held at Rumpel Memorial, or Rumpel.
In the event of rain, which sounds
Rumpel
like might
House.
be a possibility.
Rumpel House, yeah.
Which,
Rumpel House. It'll
Rumpel
be held
House.
at Rumpel House in
so
Climate.
if it's not on the corner of Chestnut and Main, it'll be at the Rumpel House.
Yeah.
Which is the old Kennard property.
Marcia Quinn sent out an email just a little while ago and said that's in the fellowship hall.
Is it going to be in the fellowship hall now? Okay.
Okay.
Good. Thank you.
Hot off the press.
We got the right corner anyway.
All right, the State of the Town meeting went well, followed by a dinner with Representative Jimmy Fox and Senator Deanna Ballard. I'm working with Senator Fox at the federal level to try to procure any funding available for underground electric on Sunset, which she was very much in favor and of, that concept of us getting as many power lines underground as possible. She didn't know of any particular money. She thought she did, but then when I talked with the person that she told me to call, that person did not know of that money. So we're still working. It's not out, but we're still working. Chamber representatives and I met with the Golden Leaf Foundation President, Don Gerlach, to try to procure any funds available for underground electric for Sunset. And we are going to apply for a grant. The most money that we can possibly get from them, even if they were to decide it is a good idea, is $200,000. So it's 200, but it's a long way away from what would be required. Charlie and I met with Blue Ridge Energy to discuss underground electric for Sunset. They're going to help us look for funds. They don't know of any that are readily available either. They will look to see what possibilities they can come up with to improve the utility poles. If we're not able to do something outright with the wiring, they are sensitive to the fact that the wiring at the intersection of Sunset and Main could look a lot better and be better. And they're going to explore possibilities for how to improve that.
Well, we've got extra poles all along Main Street too, double poles. Can they-
221 and Main Street. We've asked them to do that, if you can work with that.
And one of the problems that we discussed is they're not going to allow AT&T on their poles. And so the poles on one side of the street are primarily for Bree, and the other side of the street are primarily for all other utilities.
Yes, a terrible.
There's not a way that we can work around that?
No, and even Bree admitted to us that even if we were to wait to work out something, that AT&T has absolutely zero incentive to do anything. That their wired business is going under. They are replacing it with the wireless business. They don't care about those wires out there on those poles, and it costs a lot of money to get them down. So they are perfectly content to leave them there, is kind of what they were saying, until they rot.
And they have a right of way.
So if those wires were cut down,
They said,
At the
they
middle
didn't
of the
say
night?
this, but somebody suggested that if somebody were to go cut a bundle, they didn't know that anybody would be without service. So I don't know, everybody's using wireless, but there's still, businesses pretty much depend on wired. So.
Well, there's still areas in town that don't get wireless.
Yeah.
Mine,
So-
one just one block off Main Street, and I don't get cell service.
No, there's not a viable option to get rid of all the line jets.
Which is embarrassing.
Well, okay.
Where do you go?
I'll ask you.
Prom? You gonna stand in the parking lot?
I can go stand in the parking lot of the church now. Those apartments behind me, they have to walk out to the parking lot of the church to get any cell
you're
service.
in the hole. You're down in
You
the
hadn't
hole.
built that hole, you'd have that problem.
Yeah, it's that quaint little
All
cottage.
right, Jim Steele, Doug Matheson, and I went to our appointed legislative action committees in Raleigh on August 23rd. We narrowed the advocacy goals list down by a tremendous amount. We have a meeting tomorrow, gentlemen, and it is tomorrow, Hickory at 11:30, our legislative action committee meeting. Is that tomorrow?
Next week.
Oh, that's next week.
Next week.
All right. So, that will be winding it that, whittling it down some more, and eventually bringing that to the Advocacy Goals Conference in November.
And we had, on that, we had, usually you'll get from the towns, usually around 30 or 40 goals put in a year that they would like for us to try and work on. We had 130 goals put in this year.
Lord have mercy. That would keep you off the streets.
So the states, the towns are not happy with the state.
You know, I should have brought up that next one. September 19th is when we go. So, and that will be at the annual conference in Hickory. Doug participated in the assessment that North Carolina School of Government held at the Icon Council of Government on the 29th of August. I applied for a program offered by the North Carolina Division of Water Infrastructure. It was limited to 10 towns in North Carolina, and we were fortunate to be selected to participate. The program will provide hands-on training and technical assistance for AWWA best practices in cost-effective and reliable water loss management. So this is going to provide us professional help with analyzing our water losses and how do we do something about it. So I felt like we were really fortunate to be one of 10 in the state selected.
Who knows?
So, can you bring us back like a plan from that to?
And eventually, it's probably gonna be a year study.
Okay, that's wonderful.
And also tell you that the water cutoff valve installation at the water plant is finally done.
Very good.
Good.
Excellent.
Well, that was quite a project.
It was long, you know, it was a frustrating thing for me, you know. I eventually just had to say, gentlemen, you're either gonna do it or we're gonna find somebody else, because they kept putting us off. And they put a piece of equipment there, and I thought, oh no, they put a piece of equipment there. I guess they'll think as long as the equipment's there, they're working on it. But they did finally get it done last week, and it is operational. All right, that was
Thank you.
all I had, Mayor.
Thank you, Ed. All right, moving forward. We're going to go into closed session pursuant to NCGS 143-318, period 111.A5, and also NCGS 143-318. What?
Just public listen, because it's supposed to be on the slide, but it's not here.
Okay. 318.11A3.
Make a motion
Attorney-client
to go into
privilege.
closed session.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you. I was just looking at me. Charlie was just looking at me.
Were you supposed to read it?
Your
No.
turn.
There's no action. For information. Well, we instructed,
Instructed the manager to do something.
to go back into, well, he wants to say something. We're back into open session.
Yes, sir.
We don't need to, do we need to make, well, we talk, no, we don't have to. Never mind.
Okay.
Albert, what did you want to say?
I'm sorry?
You wanted to ask Alan something about?
I just wonder if we should take that at face value.
He doesn't know what you're talking about. Oh, you do, Rita?
I mean, I'm not sure that that calls for shooting. I'm not trying to get a she said, I just want to know if she need to take that seriously. She said, I will probably submit my resignation. There was no probably, there was no adverb. Until she does, then she is still.
Yeah, I think she did say submit, yeah.
I don't believe that. She said she resigned, and walked out the door.
I think she said I'll submit
She said I
my
will
resume.
submit
Yeah, tomorrow or something.
So I don't think we can do anything. I didn't hear her. Did she say that?
Yeah.
I didn't hear that. This doesn't call for a legal opinion.
You wanna go?
But
your legal opinion?
I'll give you my personal opinion. Somebody owes her an apology.
Yes.
That's my personal opinion. Maybe it's you.
Yeah.
It was bad too.
I mean, that's my personal opinion. You know,
I think
she's given her time, effort, and service to the town. She got upset at what you said to her, and it doesn't matter who's wrong and who's right. You should probably apologize to her and hopefully salvage that relationship. That's my personal opinion. Dad, I'm glad I didn't hear that she said that. Thank you.
Yeah, she did say that. Yeah, she did say that.
He's not charging us for his personal opinions.
Well, that's what really costs us. All right, do we, I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Well, yeah.